Our boy is a pro gamer. He spent day and night playing the Heavenly Kingdom game and had completely finished it. But just as he's about to log out, he gets reincarnated into the same game, without any powers. Using all his in-game knowledge, he starts leveling up his powers. And with his charm, every girl falls for him, everyone wants him for themselves. But our main character is a total Sigma. He doesn't care about anyone and is just chilling in his life. So, let's see how all of this begins. The story starts off near the Mo sect border, where our main character's sister was flying around with another girl at the Enchanted Palace. She told the girl to come down with her so they could explore Mount Danqing together. The girl's name was Lu Dongli, a co-leader of the Mo sect, and she explained that her disciple Xiao Qiu was visiting this place for the first time. Lu Dong wanted to show off the mountain's beauty, but then remembered she also had to explain the sect's rules. The problem was, instead of calmly teaching, Lu Dong suddenly leapt across a hill and started shouting the rules mid-air. Poor Xiao Qiu didn't catch a single word. By the time Lu Dong was done, she had already switched to another topic, leaving Xiao Qiu totally confused. As they climbed higher, Lu Dong explained that Xiao Qiu and 10 others had been chosen as new recruits for the Mo sect. From now on, she'd be their master, while her older brother, the sect's leader, would oversee everything. She warned Xiao Qiu to show him absolute respect and, most importantly, never be alone with him or train with him. Hearing that, Xiao Qiu freaked out and asked if the leader really ate children. Lu Dong quickly said no. It was actually worse. Her brother had always been a little strange. As a kid, he'd often say things like he wasn't from this world and that everything around them was just a game. Lu Dong thought he was just being silly back then, but over time, his words started sounding scarier. When their parents died, Lu Chao broke down, crying that in his 40 years of life, only his parents had ever given him true warmth. But Lu Dong just looked at him sadly, because in reality, her brother was only 19 years old. Since then, he often forgot his age and kept calling himself some kind of model protagonist. To her, it was clear he wasn't well in the head. Even so, Lu Dong took it upon herself to grow strong. She felt she was the only one who could protect the family name and make sure no one dared to target her brother, no matter how broken he was inside. As they crossed a wide plaza, Xiao Qiu spotted a man standing on a high rock and asked if that was the sect leader. The man was gazing at the sky, mumbling about how the Heavenly Kingdom was crushing his body's consciousness and that soon he'd be swallowed by darkness. His sister was used to this kind of talk, but Xiao Qiu was shocked. Lu Dong, the leader's sister, just covered her ears, tired of hearing what she thought was nonsense. Xiao Qiu, on the other hand, studied the leader more closely. She was blown away by how handsome he was and instantly thought he looked like the perfect strong master. Lu Chao noticed her interest and told her she was lucky to have joined his sect, because her future was now wide open. His sister frowned, but he kept going, saying the girl's stats were perfect for sword training and that he was one of the top swordsmen around. Lu Dong realized Xiao Qiu was already falling under his influence, and if it continued, she might drag others with her. So Lu Dong quickly stepped in, saying the girl must be tired from the trip and needed to rest. She pulled Xiao Qiu away, walking fast without looking back, even turning her head so she wouldn't glance at the leader again. But Xiao Qiu couldn't help sneaking one last look at him, her eyes filled with admiration. Watching them leave, Lu Chao only smiled. He was intrigued by the girl. Her stats were crazy high, and her luck was even better. He thought about how she didn't come because they found her. It was her luck that brought her to them. Then his thoughts drifted. It had been 21 years since he first arrived in this world. To him, Heavenly Kingdom was the best game of the 20th century, almost like it was made by the immortals. He'd been playing all this time without cheats, waiting for an update. Right then, a message popped up in front of him. An update was finally coming, and new features would be unlocked. He got excited, opened his stats panel, and checked everything. Most of his numbers were maxed out, but he was glad there was still room to improve. When he saw the note about his looks being very attractive, he laughed to himself, saying strength could always be trained, but good looks, those last forever. The system then showed a countdown, 30 days until the closed beta test. In game time, that meant 300 days. He guessed new players would arrive then. Honestly, he thought Earth couldn't even compare to this world. It was inferior in every way. Still, he remembered that not long ago, he had been part of Earth himself. He recalled his past life, how he was a rich second-generation kid, loaded with money and blessed with good looks. Girls loved him, and games were his main obsession. What set him apart from other players was his endless wealth. One time, after finishing a game, he took off his helmet and shouted to his parents that he was hungry, expecting dinner. But no one answered. With a shrug, he just put the helmet back on and returned to the game. His parents were too busy with their divorce to care about him. They weren't gone, but they might as well have been. All he got from them were money transfers and the occasional call about money. many. He barely even knew where they were. That kind of life made him lose interest in reality. The only place he felt alive was inside his games. But when he woke up in this world, it was like a rebirth. This time, he had real parents, smiling at him, filled with love. On the day he was born, the sky was clear and the view outside was beautiful. His mother looked out the window and decided his name would be Lu Chao. For him, it was a dream come true, because in his last life, he had everything but love. And this time, he hoped he'd finally get it. Suddenly, another message appeared. He could start a clan mission. After 20 years of grinding, this was his chance. He accepted right away. The system scanned him, then assigned him the task of strengthening the Mo sect. It made him think of his father, who had always dreamed of making their clan powerful. Now, he could continue that dream. As he clicked on the mission details, glowing special effects surrounded him, and words appeared in the air. The clan is not fortified. Lu Chao was stunned and didn't know how to respond. He admitted to himself that maybe he hadn't followed his father's ideals perfectly, but the harsh response he'd just gotten felt like an insult. Upset, he started recalling how clans were ranked in his past life. The Sword Clan, he remembered, was one of the 4 strongest, but history also spoke of a legendary super clan that had disappeared long ago. He wondered why his own clan sat so low, 9th out of 10, and even suspected the system might be wrong. Curious, he clicked on an item, and the system told him the conditions weren't met. It also added, bluntly, that the system never fails, only weak players do. That hit him hard. He didn't think he was the problem. Still, he told himself he should practice more tomorrow. As he walked away, he thought about how if his clan was really that weak, they would have been kicked out of the union of 300 clans long ago. The fact that the Sword Clan itself had taken him in as a scout gave him some comfort. Wandering around, he came across a strange tombstone. He tapped on it and said his friend was still there. He remembered then, besides the 10 active members of his clan, there was one more. A loud noise came from inside, and Lu Chao smiled, saying it was good that the warrior was still alive. That warrior had been sealed there for over a century, found by the clan's ancestors, and was in a state of isolation. Lu Chao wasn't sure who exactly it was, maybe even an immortal. But he figured, if the man died inside, at least there'd be no need for a grave. The next day, he and his sister attended a Mo sect summit. The leader discussed the issue of leaving the mountain. His sister mocked him, saying he was always caught up in nonsense. Lu Chao snapped, yelling at her to shut up or he'd pinch her as punishment. To his shock, she didn't react at all, just leaned back quietly. That made him even more irritated. He asked if she was scared, and she calmly asked why he really wanted to descend the mountain, warning that he could get into trouble. Lu Chao slammed his hand on the table and said he was tired of sitting around. They needed herbs to improve the clan's condition, and they had nothing left to sell. His sister's eyes lit up with surprise and excitement. She asked if he'd finally made up his mind. He didn't see why she was so shocked. She told him she honestly thought he'd stay at a beginner's level forever and was happy he'd finally stopped talking nonsense. Lu Chao told her not to underestimate him. He wasn't just stronger than her, he would also do something big for their clan. Fired up, he shouted that he would bring glory to the Mo sect and honor their ancestors. But instead of being reassured, his sister just stared in disbelief. For a moment, she had thought he was getting better, but here he was again, lost in his hero delusions. The next morning, the siblings headed down the stairs with Lu Chao's only student, Hei Ting. Lu Chao asked if they should wear their special robes. He worried about how people would recognize him as an immortal. His sister dismissed the idea, saying they should stay low-key and not attract attention. Lu Chao teased her, asking what if she wasn't as tough as she claimed. As they left their house, 2 strangers secretly watched them, debating what to do with the noisy leader. Soon, everyone climbed onto a flying leaf that carried them across the burning forest where the herbs they needed grew. On the way, Xiaoqiu asked Lu Dong why this herb was so important. She explained it was crucial for self-improvement, especially for learning how to levitate, and encouraged Xiaoqiu to keep studying. Xiaoqiu got fired up, suddenly eager to meditate and become stronger. Meanwhile, Lu Chao was deep in thought. The system gave him 4 tasks, each with a difficulty level. He remembered this exact choice from his past life. Most players picked the orange level mission. It was quick and easy. High-level players chose blue, pros picked purple, and only the craziest, or desperate, players with enough money tried the yellow one. He weighed his options carefully, then finally decided to go with orange, the simplest one. What he didn't know was that 2 people were secretly tailing them, hidden in an invisible sphere. The girl commented on the strong wind, and the guy asked if they should reveal themselves now that they were so close. She said no, even if she shouted in Elder Lu Dong's face, she wouldn't notice. He told her she didn't need to explain so much. She wondered aloud if he was following Lu Chao out of curiosity or spite. He thought about it, then admitted it was probably hatred. That made her curious. What had Lu Chao done to earn such hostility from such a powerful swordsman? Lu Chao's team finally reached the spot they needed. Lu Dong told everyone to get ready. Their goal was to find the herb quickly and use it to boost their cultivation. She also warned them about dangerous beasts lurking around. Lu Chao Chao noticed something odd and asked why she was hiding her cultivation level. He said it looked lower than before. Lu Dong just laughed it off, saying that was impossible, but Lu Chao didn't buy it. Her face gave her away, so he decided to trust only himself from now on. Lu Chao told them to start searching. He knew his own mission was to defeat a level 10 monster boss, which was rare. Finding one would be tough, but he figured a strong boss meant more ways to take it down. Not long after, Lu Dong said they were lucky. She spotted the first spiritual herb. Beautiful glowing flowers shone in front of them. Xiao Qiu sniffed the air and said it smelled so good it made her hungry. Then, a sudden noise came from the bushes. Furious red eyes appeared from the thicket. Lu Dong immediately warned everyone to get ready. It was a monster. The students froze, terrified, since none of them had ever faced something like this. Lu Dong prepared herself, telling them to stay still, and even said she'd grab the herb herself so no beast could take it. Everyone was shocked by her boldness, but what really worried her was her brother's pride. He walked straight toward the flowers like nothing was wrong. To him, it was perfect luck. The rare herb and the monster he needed for his mission were both here. His sister couldn't believe how careless he was acting, while Xiao Qiu admired his courage. Lu Dong stayed cautious. If the monster was weak, she'd let her brother fight. If it was strong, she knew she'd have only seconds to react. Everyone held their breath as Lu Chao approached. Even the two hidden observers were watching closely. The man called him an idiot, pointing out the beast was a powerful level 9 monster. The woman asked what he thought Lu Chao would do next. He said the smartest move would be to bait it and finish it in a single strike. She agreed. Lu Chao crouched near the glowing flowers, deliberately tempting the monster to attack. The two hidden observers shook their heads, thinking he had no strategy. But just as he bent down, a sharp crack of branches echoed overhead. Out of nowhere, a massive level 10 striped black snake lunged down from the mountain. The attack came fast, but Lu Chao didn't flinch. He waited until the snake was almost on top of him. The students shouted in panic, but he stayed calm. At the last moment, his ring glowed and energy condensed into a blade. A sword appeared in his hand just as the giant snake struck. With a swift move, he turned and countered. The monster thought it had him, but Lu Chao split its head open. The students were stunned into silence. The man watching from afar, however, was filled with old memories. He remembered when Lu Chao, as a boy, used to boast he'd become the strongest swordsman. Back then, he had slapped him, told him to call him brother, and thought he'd knocked the arrogance out of him. Now, seeing him kill the snake so cleanly, he had to admit, Lu Chao really did have the instincts of a true swordsman. From the trees above, a young boy also saw it all. He couldn't understand how Lu Chao managed such a feat and guessed it must have been his sharp mind and endless training. Right after finishing the beast, Lu Chao used another technique, and the sword disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Lu Chao raised his ringed hand toward the monster, saying it would be a worthy offering for their clan. Black energy spread around the giant snake, slowly breaking it apart. Xiao Qiu couldn't stop gushing about how strong her leader was. His sister, though, wasn't happy. She thought he was dragging it out with that special sword when he could have just ended it with a normal strike. She also worried there might be more monsters hiding around. After a few minutes, Lu Chao explained that when snakes die, they release dangerous poison, so he was keeping his distance. Once the beast finally collapsed, the system notified him. The snake was dead, he had gained 10,000 experience points, and his mission was complete. Excited, he accepted his reward. Suddenly, orange light flared on the mountain ahead, burning like fire. A scroll slowly formed in the air. Lu Chao's eyes lit up. This was an orange-class spiritual practice scroll, something incredibly rare. Such scrolls appeared when someone advanced a stage, offering the chance to gain a divine blessing. A lightning blessing gave power over thunder, a wind blessing gave control over air. His sister had the wind blessing, while he already carried fire. Now he could hardly wait to see which spirit would choose him. He picked up the scroll and looked at the glowing flowers. If he wanted to create his spirit here, he had to act fast. Spirit creation meant taking a sprout and finding a safe spot to begin the process. He decided one sprout was enough, leaving the other two behind. They hurried off, and his sister promised to find the safest place for him. Xiao Qiu noticed how serious she looked, determined to protect her brother. From afar, the hidden watchers muttered that he'd rushed so much he left part of the herb behind. The woman even said the pieces he took would dry out quickly unless stored properly, like in a perfume box with other spiritual plants. Soon, they reached a beautiful place with a waterfall and a small lake. Lu Dong said she had scanned the area for 8 kilometers, no strong beasts, no people. Lu Chao brushed it off, saying they didn't need such heavy precautions for a simple first-stage transition. His sister reminded him that he was the one who always preached safety first. Ignoring her, Lu Chao sat down, settling into a meditation posture. His student He Ting quickly tossed a big pillow under him. Lu Chao said it wasn't needed, his chest already felt like it would burst. His sister grinned, saying maybe it was a sign he was about to level up. Xiao Qiu piped up, asking if the master wanted to eat the fragrant herb now and if he'd share it with his loyal disciple. Lu Dong was shocked she even suggested that, saying there was no way he'd share with little Xiao Qiu. But before anyone could argue, Lu Chao put the herb in his mouth. He told them they could eat it, but it would hurt them badly. Moments later, he was writhing in pain. Xiao Qiu panicked and begged Lu Dong to help. She thought their master had eaten something bad and now had a stomachache. His sister just watched silently. Then, out of nowhere, a yellow aura spread around Lu Chao. The hidden observers appeared again. The man whispered that Lu Chao might break the kingdom's barrier. The woman asked you if enlightenment came after that barrier broke. You admitted she was right, but when she asked if Lu Chao had a chance to receive his enlightened spirit, he snapped back, of course not. His aunt pressed him, and he said no one had ever gained their spirit past the age of 16, so Lu Chao couldn't either. She agreed, thinking he had missed his only chance. But while they doubted him, something incredible began. Golden energy bloomed beneath Lu Chao like a flower. His sister stared wide-eyed. This was real. Her brother was truly stepping into the path of enlightenment. Then something amazing happened. Out of nowhere, a yellow lightning bolt shot straight into the sky, moving so fast it was like light itself. Yu and his aunt were stunned, completely caught up in the sight. The lightning didn't fade, it just kept climbing higher until the sky itself seemed to open. Strange, powerful sounds echoed everywhere, and people from far off stopped what they were doing just to watch. Curious villagers and cultivators started moving closer, but Lu Chao's aunt turned back and released a powerful force that pushed them away. The energy was so overwhelming that the crowd froze in place. They quickly decided it wasn't worth risking their lives and backed off, whispering that only a great cultivator could have that kind of power. Meanwhile, Lu Chao felt like he was stepping into something vast. In a blink, he was floating in a place that looked like space itself. He thought, this must be the true power of the heavens. Around him, glowing spheres appeared, each holding a different element. He drifted closer, wondering which one belonged to him, but suddenly, all the spheres shot away. Shocked, he found himself completely alone, not sure what to do. Then he felt a presence behind him. He turned quickly, and smiled. What he saw was something meant only for him, a gift unlike anything else. Back at the waterfall, Xiao Qiu stirred awake. She had eaten a flower petal his sister gave her, which should have kept her asleep, but the herb wasn't very strong, so she woke up fast. Still groggy, she asked what was going on, noticing her master staring in awe. When she followed his gaze, she saw something unbelievable. The waterfall's flow had stopped completely. At the same time, the light in the sky was growing brighter and brighter, until it was too dazzling for Xiao Qiu to even look. Then it shifted into the shape of a lotus. This was no ordinary light, it was the spirit of enlightenment. His aunt gasped, saying it was incredible, since only the first true initiate of heaven and earth could receive such a blessing. You muttered that Lu Chao might not only be enlightened but could also be the first to truly master the power of heaven and earth. Still, he couldn't figure out how Lu Chao had managed to connect with forces that deep. Then his aunt noticed something even more shocking. The spirit that answered Lu Chao had taken the form of water. The whole event was on a massive scale, and from far away, people whispered in awe, wondering which clan's disciple had summoned the blessing of the heavens. In the middle of it all, Lu Chao stood surrounded by water and raw energy. The light was so intense he could barely keep his eyes open. Then he heard a booming voice. Another followed, then another, until there were 6 voices echoing around him. His sister recognized the process. Normally, 9 voices meant the full blessing, but even 8 would do. Someone explained that according to the old records, 6 voices were already enough for a true blessing. After that, it was all up to destiny. His aunt asked you again how many times he thought Lu Chao could call down the blessings of the heavens. You guessed it might be more than they expected, but warned that the more it happened, the harder it would be to keep things under control. Up in the air, Lu Chao realized something big. The sky itself was like a giant repeater, echoing those heavenly voices all around him. The flow of energy spread everywhere, shaking the world. His sister's eyes lit up when the 8th voice appeared. Then, when the 9th voice finally rang out, she shouted with pure joy. Lu Chao felt it too. He told himself that this was his destiny, that he had earned this power with his own hands. He opened his eyes and declared it was the spirit of enlightenment. A message confirmed it. He had gained the spirit of enlightenment, the power of heaven and earth, and his spirit was water. When he landed back on the ground, he was grinning. His sister rushed over to ask how he felt, but Xiao Qiu just said the herb had been delicious and she wanted more. Her only concern was her stomach. Lu Chao stretched his hand toward the water. Energy rippled out, and the stream started moving toward him. He shaped it into a floating water balloon, laughing that everything suddenly felt so much clearer. He crushed it with his fist, then opened his palm to make another one instantly. He experimented with different sizes and said this ability could be really useful. His sister congratulated him again, though Xiao Qiu was distracted, drooling nonstop. Embarrassed, she wiped her mouth and muttered it couldn't just be from the alcoholic weed. Lu Chao guessed the truth. He could now control water even inside the human body. The power was far stronger than he imagined. His sister said she had erased all traces of the ritual, so they could safely head back. But Lu Chao shook his head, saying others couldn't see their magical footprints anyway. She didn't quite understand. If some higher being saw them, they'd be finished, but she let it go. They climbed onto their flying leaf and took off. His aunt was impressed, calling him promising, though she quietly pointed out something was wrong. He hadn't actually crossed the barrier yet. That meant he had some hidden problem, and she could only hope he'd be alright. Meanwhile, Lu Chao was already thinking ahead. The mission reward came through, tons of experience points. He wondered how much he could level up. Maybe he should dump it all into attack power? But then again, spending it all at once might hurt him later. At one point, his sister asked if anyone was thirsty and offered spiritual spring water. Only 2 students raised their hands. She also tried to give her brother some, but he sat quietly, pretending not to notice. A moment later, though, he grabbed a mug himself, smiled, and said he decided to raise his level to the max. As soon as he drank, the leveling energy lit up around him. His power skyrocketed. His sister was stunned and asked if he had just crossed 5 whole boundaries with a single cup of water. Lu Chao only grinned and asked if she thought that was strange. Behind them, Yu and his aunt were still flying, both stunned. Yu said Lu Chao had done it without even meditating. His aunt admitted she was impressed, but shook her head. No matter how talented someone was, this shouldn't have been possible. Out of nowhere, Yu said he finally understood. He explained that Lu Chao had been holding himself back on purpose, staying at the initial boundary all this time. At first, Yu admitted he thought Lu Chao was just being careless, but now he saw it was part of a bigger plan. He realized he himself could never have done that. He didn't have the patience to restrain his desire for growth the way Lu Chao did. His aunt thought it was clever too. She said Lu Chao had always been different, even as a kid. He never gave up, even while stuck at the same boundary for years, and he never wasted time pitying himself. She said he had a heart that couldn't be broken. Meanwhile, Xiao Qiu turned to Hei Ting and teased him, asking if he knew why their master always exaggerated everything. Hei Ting just shook his head. Xiao Qiu sighed, saying he wasn't very talkative. Then something strange happened. Xiao Qiu's body began glowing. She froze, scared, while her master Lu Dong looked just as shocked. Rushing forward, she hugged Xiao Qiu and laughed with joy, saying she had officially become a first-level cultivator. Right after that, a system message appeared, asking if the Mo sect should advance to the next level. Lu Chao didn't hesitate and immediately confirmed. A reward dropped in, 5,000 experience points plus sword mastery. He was amazed, since even a tiny boost to sword skills meant a massive jump in ability. Excited, he tested it out, investing points to sharpen his swordsmanship even more. He grinned, thinking that once he reached sword consciousness, he might even be able to fly. He laughed to himself, remembering that Yu was born as a perfect sword master with charisma maxed out at 10. Maybe I should just call myself the perfectly handsome man, he joked in his head. Then another notification popped up. His next mission, Secrets of the Second Level. The goal was to raise the Mo sect from level 9 to level 8. The reward? 20,000 experience points and another sword mastery boost. But the requirements were tough. The sect needed 1,000 reputation points, and they only had 307, 3 third-level cultivators, and over 100 disciples. The reputation was climbing, but this challenge wouldn't be easy. A second notification chimed in. He had hit level 15 and unlocked the mastership system. He had almost forgotten about that feature. Every time a student earned experience, the master would get half. Curious, he checked it and saw that his old master, Lu Qingfeng, had already died. That stung. He still remembered the man alive when he was a child. His thoughts drifted to his parents too, remembering how kind they were and wondering how they could have died back then. He promised himself he'd protect the sect and make it thrive, no matter what. Finally, he pulled up his student stats and was surprised to see that Hei Ting had been stuck at level 10 this whole time. He frowned, realizing he needed to step in and help him break through. Lu Chao looked at Hei Ting and thought he still hadn't gotten over what happened in the past. He asked him why he was still stuck at the first level, since he should have been able to move on a long time ago. Hei Ting just lowered his head, staying quiet. So Lu Chao pressed a little, asking if he was still haunted by that old incident. Back then, an old madman had shouted in the middle of the street that young Hei Ting was born from evil and would one day become a great terror. The crowd was shocked. Hei Ting was just a child, but people started whispering that maybe his parents had died because of him. Some even suggested kicking him out of the village, since he was already an orphan. Then someone shouted for everyone to make way for Lu Chao, the sect leader's son. The crowd scattered, curious when they saw him. He didn't even look like a cultivator, so they wondered why people called him Reverend. Lu Chao walked straight to Hei Ting and said he'd heard everything. The boy was too young to know what to do, and tears welled up in his eyes. Lu Chao reached out his hand and told him he only lacked a squire. He even said the power of evil suited him. The villagers were stunned, trying to talk Lu Chao out of it, warning him that this child might bring disaster. But Hei Ting broke down and knelt on the ground. That's when Lu Chao shouted for the crowd to be quiet and declared that from that day forward, the boy would be his student. Everyone was shocked, but Hei Ting looked up with a flicker of hope in his eyes. Lu Chao said he'd take responsibility for whatever came in the future. Hei Ting didn't show much emotion, but inside, he was happy. From that moment, Lu Chao gave him strict training. When they were climbing toward the top, he told Hei Ting to watch his step, saying he didn't care if he fell. Hei Ting was exhausted but kept going, pushing himself with the thought of a brighter future. When he finally slipped and started to fall, Lu Chao caught him at the last second. He told him to hold on tight because the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Ting couldn't help but feel joy in that moment. Lu Chao then explained that to create a true demon, you had to give it power, a hard life, a spark of hope, and then crush that hope. But he smiled and said Ting wasn't like that, because his ray of hope was Lu Chao himself. Ting didn't really understand, but those words stuck with him. Lu Chao asked if he felt like his heart was covered in fog, and said every fog eventually clears. Ting stayed silent, but something shifted deep in his soul. As they flew closer to their land, the scenery around them turned breathtaking. Surrounded by beauty, Ting was suddenly wrapped in a blue energy field. Tears streamed down his face, and in that moment, in the year 1421 of the Tang calendar, a disciple of the Mo sect, Ting, looked at the sky from a flying leaf and finally broke through the initial barrier. Right after Ting's breakthrough, Lu Chao got a reward notification. He laughed to himself, saying of course he'd get it. After all, he was a super master. Xiao looked at him with even more admiration. Yu was stunned again, realizing Lu Chao's power of heaven and earth could even help a student break through inner demons. His aunt noticed Yu staring, clearly analyzing every move Lu Chao made. Meanwhile, Lu Chao's sister told both him and Ting that since they'd passed the initial barrier, their future would be bright. Lu Chao, grinning, said as a reward he wanted Aunt Ning's limited edition skyboat. His sister frowned, not even knowing what he meant by limited edition. Xiao Qiu asked if it was food, and right then her stomach growled. She admitted she was hungry. Lu Chao chuckled, said he was in a great mood, and asked his sister to land so he could show off his cooking. Everyone cheered at the idea, but the landing wasn't gentle. They dropped fast, and Xiao Qiu panicked, clutching Lu Dong's leg, asking why they were falling so quickly. Lu Dong stayed calm, saying she'd understand once she tried. Xiao Qiu muttered to herself, wondering if the leader really cooked that well. Once they hit the ground, Ting started setting things up, while Lu Chao's sister ran off to catch fish. In no time, there was a big table laid out with all kinds of dishes. Xiao Qiu was shocked that Ting's bag could hold so much. Then Yu called Xiao Qiu over, offering to teach her about cultivation. She was surprised. This was the first time the handsome leader had spoken to her alone, and she couldn't really say no. Just then, Lu Chao's sister came running back with fish, only to stop dead when she saw Xiao Qiu sitting right next to her brother, listening to his lesson. He was asking her what to do if an opponent refused to give up even after losing. Xiao Qiu said he was trying to trick her, but she wasn't that dumb. Lu Chao praised her for catching on so fast. His sister threw her hands up, saying her poor student had already been infected by her brother. The mood shifted when Lu Chao asked Xiao Qiu if she felt that sudden cold. She agreed, and when he turned, he realized the source. It was his furious sister glaring at him, clutching a fish like a weapon. She charged and smacked him with it, yelling for him to stop bothering her student. Before long, the fish stew was ready, seasoned with vegetables and smelling amazing. While Lu Chao stirred the cauldron, his sister tried to lecture Xiao Qiu, saying not to act like a leader or she'd look foolish and lose. But Xiao Qiu shrugged, saying it was fine because the Mo sect had her. Lu Chao, overhearing, gave her a thumbs up. His sister groaned. It was already too late. Xiao Qiu was completely under his influence. After the meal, they set off again, everyone in good spirits after the feast. But suddenly, Lu Dong started sobbing, trying to cover her mouth with her hand. Xiao Qiu asked what was wrong, and she snapped back, telling her not to talk because she was crying. Xiao Qiu blinked and said it must have been the leader's fish. It was just too good. That year, Lu Chao had even learned to cook fancy Chinese and European dishes just to surprise people. When they reached the gate, someone was already waiting. Aunt Ning teased that Lu Chao and Lu Dong had already come back, and both she and Yu quickly covered it up, pretending their meeting was just a coincidence. Lu Chao asked how long they'd been waiting, but Aunt Ning said they had just arrived. She noticed he had already crossed the barrier and praised him, though she secretly thought he was a smooth liar. Lu Chao joked that maybe she'd reward him with a flying boat for it. Aunt Ning called him a rogue but agreed anyway. When he spotted Yu, Lu Chao patted his head and called him the little rogue. Yu smiled awkwardly and avoided his eyes, stretching his neck. That reaction surprised Lu Chao. Normally you would snap back at him, but today he didn't. For a second, Lu Chao wondered if you had some strange fetish and shuddered at the thought. Lu Chao invited everyone inside to talk. Aunt Ning agreed and even offered advice if anyone had cultivation problems. As they walked, she answered Lu Dong's questions, and the girl thanked her politely. Then Aunt Ning asked Lu Chao if he had doubts. He said he had just one. If a cultivator wasn't strong in sword skills, was it better to keep leveling up steadily or focus on sword skills first? The question caught Aunt Ning off guard, and even Yu was surprised. Lu Chao explained he needed 100,000 experience points for sword skill, which could otherwise raise him 3 levels. Aunt Ning told him that mastering every skill was important for a sword cultivator and shared that an ancient master once doubled his experience gains after reaching peak mastery. But she added that with Lu Chao's weak cultivation base, chasing sword skill right now would waste increased his energy. Lu Chao immediately jumped up, saying he understood. He'd reach maximum sword proficiency as fast as possible to not disappoint her. Aunt Ning blinked, asking when she had ever said she expected that from him. Then you suddenly stood up, saying flat out that Lu Chao could never reach the peak of sword mastery. Lu Chao asked him calmly why not, and you snapped back that it just wasn't possible. He explained how he had trained like a madman, risking his life, and still only managed half a step into the sword gate. If he reached sword consciousness this year, he could surpass even modern masters, but the way Lu Chao spoke so casually about it infuriated him. Lu Chao, on the other hand, was getting irritated with you for openly contradicting him. His sister thought his plan sounded way too ambitious, and though she agreed with you on this one, she stayed on her brother's side to protect his reputation. Aunt Ning just laughed, saying they sounded like they were about to fight anyway. She pointed out that you had already taken half a step toward the gate of mastery, so the best way to solve this was with a battle. Fired up and angry, both you and Lu Chao agreed. The weather was perfect for it. The sun was setting on a clear horizon. Aunt Ning suggested you lower his sword skill a bit so the fight would be fair. You agreed, saying it was time to start, and told Lu Chao to bring out his sword. As soon as he drew his blade, it glowed with a blinding red light. Lu Dong was stunned by how powerful it looked. Aunt Ning reminded everyone that all three of them had started with identical swords, but Lu Dong still felt embarrassed. She wanted to point out that Yu's weapon was clearly stronger. Xiao Qiu tugged on Lu Dong's sleeve and asked if Uncle Yu was really that strong. Lu Dong nodded, saying he was one of the strongest of the younger generation in Qingzhou, maybe the strongest. That made Xiao Qiu's eyes widen. Even after hearing all that, she piped up confidently that their leader would still win. Lu Dong blinked at her in disbelief. You asked why Lu Chao still hadn't drawn his sword. Lu Chao replied that he avoided drawing it because someone might actually die. That only made you angrier. He thought Lu Chao was looking down on him. With the sunset behind him, you stood tall, full of energy, and demanded he draw the sword. But Lu Chao said he didn't understand. He hadn't unsheathed it for 9 years, and there was a reason. Then, instead of more talk, he moved to fight. You attacked first, determined to force him to use his blade. They darted across the plaza, fire clashing against water. The strength wasn't overwhelming, but the fight still looked incredible. Xiao Qiu watched in awe, thinking her leader was the coolest. Aunt Ning shook her head, saying fighting on wits alone wasn't easy. Lu Dong muttered that if her brother kept it up, he'd lose sooner or later. You pressed harder, throwing out a storm of punches and yelling at Lu Chao to unsheath his sword. Even when he hadn't used the blade's full power, he kept demanding it. Finally, Yu's sword flared hotter, tongues of fire spilling from it until the steel burned bright red. Lu Dong gasped as her own sword reacted, and for the first time she understood what higher-level sword power felt like. But Lu Chao only smiled, saying you wasn't doing that great. His own sword hadn't even nodded. That insult pushed you over the edge. He poured even more energy into his weapon until it burned with a deep blue fire. The heat was unreal, filling the whole area with raw energy. You roared at Lu Chao to be careful. This was his strongest technique. The force of it swept across the plaza, but Lu Chao stayed calm, thinking to himself this was the difference between someone with pre-sword consciousness and someone without. Then, at last, he acted. He focused, unlocked his sword perception skill, and poured 100,000 experience points into it. His blade exploded with energy, more than anyone there had ever felt. He shouted that he was launching his attack, surging forward with incredible speed. For a moment it looked like he'd finally have to face you head-on. But when he got close, Lu Chao didn't even open his eyes. He stood there, calm and unmoving. Lu Dong shouted for her brother to be careful, while Aunt Ning worried that if you used the lone sword technique now, there'd be no turning back. She admitted he had the talent to inherit the master sword art, but reminded herself that as long as she was around, no one would touch Lu Chao. Then something completely unexpected happened. Her whole expression shifted as she stared in shock. A huge vortex of yellow energy appeared like a shield, cutting off Yu's attack at the last second. Yu froze, recognizing something familiar about it. Lu Dong shouted in disbelief, saying her brother must have awakened sword consciousness. Little Xiao Qiu was completely mesmerized, whispering that the leader looked like a hero stepping right out of a painting. When the energy cleared, everyone saw what really happened. Lu Chao had stopped the attack with just his fingers. He stood calmly and announced it was a sword realization. Yu's face went pale. He felt a strange, familiar sensation, then slipped into fury. He shouted again and again that he didn't believe it. Yu charged and attacked, but Lu Chao batted it away with his arm. Yu tried again and again, exhausting himself, still yelling that it couldn't be real. But each time, Lu Chao knocked him back with ease. Finally, Lu Chao deflected with such precision that Yu's sword flew out of his hands. Yu fell hard onto the ground. In a blink, Lu Chao's hand was at his throat. He told him the fight was over. Yu sat there, completely shaken. Memories rushed through his head, the years of sealing, cultivating, training with great masters, battling rare monsters, and sacrificing so much for sword mastery. Yet somehow Lu Chao had achieved it all so easily. He couldn't understand why. Admitting defeat, he asked if Lu Chao would answer a question. With his back turned, Lu Chao said he could. Yu explained he had studied countless records and spoken to masters, and all of them said sword consciousness wasn't possible before the 3rd level. They'd even told him his stats gave him great potential, yet he still couldn't do what Lu Chao just did. Lu Chao told him plainly, if you had learned from great masters and read ancient scrolls, then he was standing on the shoulders of giants. And when you're already standing on giants, the least you can do is try to look further. History doesn't need to chain you, he added. You blinked in surprise at those words. His sister rolled her eyes, thinking her brother was just spouting nonsense again. But Yu bowed, saying he understood and admitted he wasn't as strong as his senior. His sister groaned, holding her head, thinking you had just fallen under Lu Chao's spell. You then asked how long Lu Chao had been practicing sword consciousness. Lu Chao held his sword, gazed into the distance, and said he'd been training since the day he received it. Everyone was stunned. Inside, though, Lu Chao knew he was bending the truth. He'd only unlocked it by spending experience points, which had started accumulating when he first got the sword. He thought to himself, maybe he was a cheater, but at least he was a hardworking cheater. You bowed again, saying he finally understood. Aunt Ning was overjoyed, thinking how incredible Lu Chao was. He even managed to lift Yu's spirits in the middle of all this. You wasn't done yet. He said he had more to say, which already made Lu Chao feel annoyed. This guy just wouldn't stop talking. You asked to see his sword up close, but Lu Chao gave him a sharp look and said it was too dangerous. That sword had been sealed in its scabbard for 9 years, and it wasn't meant for him anyway. That's when you suddenly remembered something. His thoughts went back to a dark incident years ago, when a secret demon caused chaos in Qingzhou. Lu Chao's parents had fought that monster together, but both lost their lives. You realized the demon had survived, and if the sword really was meant for that creature, then all that power had been sealed away inside the scabbard for 10 years. He admitted he wasn't worthy of it. Lu Chao simply said that the day he finally drew the sword would be the day he took revenge. Later that night, under a big glowing moon, Lu Chao walked along the path, thinking about everything. Aunt Ning and you had decided to stay with them for a few days. He figured it was fine, at least Aunt Ning could help improve his flying skills. Meanwhile, Aunt Ning was in her room practicing magic, when suddenly her charm beeped. She brushed it off, but decided to add another protective seal on Lu Chao anyway, just in case. As Lu Chao wondered, he recalled how Yu's words after their fight had sounded strange. He laughed to himself, thinking Yu was like some kind of main character type, but he had nothing to envy. He was a cheater, after all. He had already cleared the beginner stage, and bigger challenges were waiting. He went to a tombstone and tapped a stone, calling out for the maid spirit. A ghostly figure appeared, curious about what felt different in him today. Though she seemed simple-minded, legend said she was powerful, and she clearly noticed his changes. But when nothing happened, Lu Chao got annoyed, saying she couldn't even tell he'd made a breakthrough. He reminded her he only respected her because she had saved his life once, and if she ignored him now, he wouldn't give her anything. See, the maid spirit had ties to the Mo sect, and every leader paid her tribute. His father used to give her a spiritual jewel every month. But when it was his turn, Lu Chao had nothing like that. Instead, he gave her the most valuable thing a man could offer in that world, his seed. They said a drop of seed was worth 10 drops of blood. So, he tossed it to the spirit. To his surprise, she loved it. Her face lit up with joy. She liked it even more than the jewels his father had given her. Lu Chao collapsed, drained, joking to himself that he really wished this world had cigarettes. He muttered that if her rewards weren't so good, he never would have given her his seed in the first place. Then, the spirit shifted into pure energy, the stone glowed, and suddenly a purple scroll appeared. It was the second volume of the Qi absorption technique, medium quality. Lu Chao was shocked. Purple techniques were treasures in Qingzhou, far better than the usual blue ones. This one scattered surrounding energy and absorbed it like water, and it was priceless. But then he noticed the detail, it was only medium quality. Confused, he asked the maid if she had made a mistake. She stayed silent. He wondered if she was glitching, or maybe the technique had multiple volumes. If that was true, and it could eventually reach orange quality, then it would be even more insane. He decided he wouldn't mind giving her more of his seed in exchange for the rest. The maid made strange noises, but he got the feeling she wasn't giving out anything else today. He sighed and started walking away. Suddenly, the spirit wagged her tail happily, as if saying goodbye. Lu Chao smirked, thinking she was just overjoyed with the offering she got from him. Meanwhile, Lu Dong sat quietly, depressed, wondering how things had ended up this way. Xiao Qiu tried to calm Lu Dong down, saying the Mo sect would protect her, but Lu Dong wasn't comforted at all. She said that was exactly why she was disappointed. If the sect's disciples were like Xiao Qiu, they'd get beaten the moment they stepped outside the city. Xiao Qiu just shrugged and said it was only because she was special. Lu Dong, meanwhile, was deep in thought. She felt her student had already absorbed 30% of her brother's essence, and there was only one way left to protect her. She grabbed Xiao Qiu by the shoulders and told her very seriously that if she ever went down the mountain, she must never say she was her disciple. Instead, she had to claim she was Lu Chao's student. Xiao Qiu didn't get why that mattered so much, but before she could ask more, Lu Dong pushed her out of the house. The moment she did it, Lu Dong regretted it but knew she had no choice. She remembered her brother's old stories, full of geniuses who loved to brag, and how that pride always got them in trouble. She didn't want Xiao Qiu to end up the same way. Xiao Qiu ran off, while Lu Dong sat there worrying if she had done the right thing. She thought about giving the girl to her brother but decided that would be a bad idea. Xiao Qiu's sweet face flashed in her mind. Instead, she realized she had to train her properly so no one could bully her. Suddenly, she had a clear idea. Xiao Qiu would be her last student. From now on, she wouldn't take any new ones, and Xiao Qiu wouldn't be allowed down the mountain until her cultivation was much higher. She almost cursed herself for being so strict, but then decided to just rely on her brother when needed. She thought back to Luo Bing, another student who had insisted on learning from her brother instead. Luo Bing was special, talented and very charming, and Lu Dong knew that girl would play an important role in their lives. Meanwhile, Lu Chao was sitting on a rock when he sneezed and wondered who was bad-mouthing him. He shook it off and focused on training instead. He reminded himself that gaining experience points was all that mattered. Closing his eyes, he started absorbing heaven and earth energy so fast he looked like a glowing immortal in midair. But then things went wrong. The technique tore into his body, making him cough blood. His muscles relaxed too much, and the pain was unbearable. That's why they called this cultivation method torment. He quickly stopped before it killed him, saying that was enough for the day. Sweat dripped down his face as he lay back, exhausted. He grumbled to himself, wishing cultivation felt less like torture. If only that spirit maid had given him better techniques, things would have been easier, though, knowing her, he joked he'd probably end up completely drained anyway. As he was lying there staring at the sky, he noticed Aunt Ning approaching. He asked why she'd come, and she explained that his artifact was finally ready. They were heading back to the sword sect, but brought it over to him first on purpose. He was surprised that Lu Chao didn't even look at him. He leaned against him sadly, asking why she was in such a rush. Aunt Ning explained she didn't have much free time since she had a lot of work waiting for her at the sword sect. She then showed Lu Chao the artifact she brought, a blue-quality flying boat leaf. Lu Chao held it in his hands, realizing it had originally been yellow level, but Aunt Ning had secretly upgraded it with a hidden effect to low blue. He couldn't help but think she really cared about him. Aunt Ning asked if he liked it, and though he admitted he did, he also felt it wasn't as simple as it looked. She told him to keep cultivating. Maybe one day he'd be able to see what was hidden inside. In her mind, she wondered if he might actually have talent for artifact creation. Lu Chao grinned confidently, saying of course he'd work hard. After all, his goal was to live a long life. That answer caught her off guard. She didn't understand what he meant until he explained that his mother once said she wanted to live to 500 years, but died too young. Every year they still celebrated her birthday, so he wanted to live the life she couldn't, 500 years. Aunt Ning softened after hearing this and told him she understood. She even gave him a scroll with 10 basic artifact techniques, suggesting he study them. Lu Chao was shocked to receive something so valuable so easily. She then said she had to return to the sword sect. Lu Chao smiled, waved, and told her to come back anytime. Yu, feeling left out, asked why Lu Chao hadn't said goodbye to him. Lu Chao replied casually that he already knew and would be leaving soon. But just then, the sky flashed. A sword dropped down from above and stabbed into the ground with force. Lu Chao's expression hardened when he noticed a letter attached. He immediately thought the Gung Jin sect was getting too bold. The sword sect ruled over 300 branch sects, divided into upper, middle, and lower tiers. Mo sect was stuck at the bottom, the weakest of all. Lu Chao clenched his fists in anger. He thought it was ridiculous. Weak was weak. Why bother dividing the weak even further? But he quickly realized the Gung Jin sect had raised itself into the middle tier of the lower groups, and now they were trying to step on Mo sect. That only meant they wanted to start a fight. He reminded himself that the Mo sect, Gung Jin, and Tsuan sects all lived within 50 kilometers of each other. Mo sect used to lead the whole area, even helping the others, and now they were turning against him just because his father was gone. His blood boiled. Lu Chao threw the sword aside, saying they weren't worthy to challenge him. He released his power, waved his hand, and the sword shot back through the sky in an instant, returning straight to where it came from. When the scene shifted to the Gung Jin sect, Lin Long told another sect leader, he too, that sooner or later their sect would dominate the whole 50-kilometer area. He too mocked Lu Chao and his sect, saying Lu Chao was just a beginner and didn't deserve to compete for anything big. Just then, a sword shot through the air. He too caught it easily, smirking that the boy must already be terrified to respond so quickly. His wife laughed, saying the reply was probably pathetic, maybe even a plea for mercy, since the world only respected power now. Curious, he too decided to check the response anyway. But instead of begging, the sword carried a message filled with sharp, overwhelming energy. It was direct, powerful, and completely different from what they'd expected. The room went quiet. He too's assistant muttered that Lu Chao was acting like he was answering some minor letter, not a challenge from a leader. That insult stung. He too slammed his hand down so hard the chair beneath him shattered. He cursed Lu Chao for being arrogant and uncultured. His wife, though, said that while Lu Chao was still ordinary, he carried himself boldly, like a real man. She suggested they teach him a lesson during the upcoming meeting of the 3 sections. He too smiled coldly, agreeing, and said they'd plan it carefully to show the boy what real power looked like. Back at the Mo sect, Lu Dong told her brother that in 3 days the 3 sect leaders would gather. She offered to go with him, but he brushed her off, saying it wasn't necessary and she should stay home. Just then, a gentle breeze swept through, lifting fallen sakura petals across the mountain. Lu Chao commented that the wind felt full of passion. His sister stiffened. She realized that Luo Bing, her first student, had managed to escape seclusion. She fumed, muttering that the girl couldn't even stay hidden for a few more years. Lu Chao was curious and asked why she disliked her old student so much. He compared her to his own student, which only made his sister angrier. In a flash, she lunged at him, clawing at his face, yelling that he was clearly attracted to Luo Bing and she wouldn't allow it. He shouted at her to get her hands off. While tormenting him, she raged that Luo Bing wanted to become his wife, and worse, at her expense. Memories came rushing back. When she was 6, her parents sold her to a brothel. The owner raised her for 5 years, teaching her everything from reading and writing to how to please men. On her 11th birthday, she was put up for auction as the main attraction of the night. The bidding started at 10,000. In moments, it shot past 15, 20, then 21. Men shouted higher and higher, 28, 30, and soon over 40,000. The louder it got, the worse her fear grew. Other girls whispered that she had the kind of face that drove men wild. One bitterly compared it to her own virginity, which had been sold for only 1,000. In her heart, the young girl dreamed some noble young master would appear and rescue her, but she knew that was just fantasy. Then, suddenly, the hall went silent. Someone called out a bid of 100,000. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The man declared he wanted that girl, and his sister stood nearby in disguise. The other men mocked him, saying he was a fool to spend so much on a first night. The brothel woman, however, could barely hide her excitement. She turned to the veiled girl, whispering that the young master had just bought her virginity for 100,000, that he must have a taste for beauty. The girl peeked at him through her veil. He was handsome, yes, but in her eyes, still no different from the rest. Lu Chao smiled and told everyone he wasn't just buying the girl's first night, he was buying her completely and taking her away from that place. The hall went silent. No one had expected that. Even the girl herself was stunned, unsure how to react. Her former owner shrugged, saying if he was really paying that much, then there was nothing more to argue about. Once she realized just how much money it was, the woman shoved the girl forward and told her to go to her new master. The girl's veil slipped off, revealing her face. Lu Chao looked at her warmly, smiling as he tossed the money bag up the steps and told them to take it. To her, in that moment, he seemed like some kind of immortal who had descended from the heavens. The brothel woman handed Lu Chao the girl's papers, saying she now belonged to him, and even joked that the girl must have spent lifetimes praying to be bought by someone so handsome. The other girl sighed and said if only they had such luck, they'd pay for themselves to be freed, because the ownership papers were everything. The woman patted the girl's shoulder and asked why she hadn't called him master yet. Lu Chao was just standing there with the documents, smiling. The girl realized that yes, he really was her master now. Then, right in front of everyone, Lu Chao started tearing the papers to pieces. He said he didn't need her to call him master, she was free from that moment on. The crowd gasped. They thought he was crazy to destroy a deed worth 100,000. But the girl, she was stunned for another reason. To her, he wasn't foolish at all. She silently decided she would follow him forever, even without the papers. Lu Chao stretched out his hand and told her to come along. Lu Dong quickly stepped forward, saying she'd guide her instead. Together, they left that place. It was nighttime, lanterns glowing all around. The girl's eyes sparkled as she whispered that it was beautiful, her first time outside those walls. Lu Dong told her she'd see much more beauty in the future. But the girl only thought that what she was seeing now, the man who freed her, was already the most beautiful thing in the world. She kept looking at Lu Chao, never at Lu Dong, and that didn't escape the sisters' notice. Lu Chao suggested they take a walk since it was such a lovely night. Luo Bing quickly agreed, though Lu Dong clearly didn't like the idea. While they walked, Lu Chao asked if his sister was really comfortable moving around like that. She snapped back that she didn't care. He grinned, thinking he'd struck gold with this whole turn of events. It had only cost 10,000 sect money, but what he gained was priceless, and maybe even hiding a deeper secret. His sister kept nagging him, telling him to quit joking around since his disciples would be arriving soon and he needed to set an example. Then, out of nowhere, she felt that strong wind of passion again. She knew it was time to slip away. As she walked, the world seemed to bloom. The leaves around her shimmered and turned into butterflies. She had finally broken through the first level and returned. She hadn't seen her young master in so long. Using a summoning technique, she sent out waves of intent toward Lu Chao, calling him again and again to the bamboo house. She whispered through the bond that he was the only one waiting for her. She smiled to herself, thinking, this was her very first home delivery. Lu Chao and his sister were still arguing. He told her she needed to accept his decision, but she was furious that he chose to bring Luo Bing to the three-sect meeting instead of her. He teased her, asking if she was jealous, which left her flustered. She shot the same question back at him, then quickly downed her drink to cover the awkward silence. Her student sitting nearby grew suspicious. She finally asked directly why her brother had made such a choice. At first, he didn't want to explain, but then sighed and said he had no other option. He reminded her that those meetings weren't as simple as they looked. Each sect had to show off its strength. If he brought Hei Ting, it wouldn't be enough, and if he brought her, she'd end up hiding her true abilities. The only way to really represent most sects' strength was by bringing Luo Bing. His sister was stunned that this was the reason. He added that having a beautiful woman beside the leader made a clan appear even stronger. He pointed out how other sect leaders always brought their secretaries, and they were all strikingly beautiful. He even mentioned two clans, Tao Bao and Jing Dong, which left his sister confused since she'd never heard of them. Just then, leaves blew into the room, and Luo Bing appeared. She praised the master and his sister with a sly smile. Using a mix of her shadow-breathing skill and quick movements, she carried herself like the skilled seductress she was trained to be. Lu Chao noticed, smiling at her, while his sister ignored her completely. Poor Hei Ting, meanwhile, just sat there feeling invisible. Luo Bing's mood soured when she spotted Hei Ting, but Lu Chao couldn't help remembering women he'd seen in his past life. The resemblance in her temperament was uncanny. She moved gracefully, using all the tricks she'd learned at the brothel, clearly trying to catch his attention. In her mind, she thought it'd be perfect if she could stay close to him at his sister's house. Lu Chao finally told her that he wanted her to come with him to the sect meeting in 3 days. Her eyes lit up. This was her chance. She smiled sweetly, promising she'd do everything he asked. That was the last straw for Lu Dong. She was fuming at how smug Luo Bing looked. The anger in her chest boiled over, and she suddenly crushed the mug in her hand. Both Lu Chao and Hei Ting jumped, startled. She shot to her feet, looking furious and heartbroken at the same time, wondering why someone like Luo Bing even existed in this world. Without another word, she stormed off to her room. Lu Chao frowned, wondering if he had offended her. Hei Ting cautiously said that yes, the master had probably hurt her feelings a lot, but Lu Chao glared at him and demanded how he dared speak like that to his master. Terrified, Hei Ting immediately apologized and said he'd prepare fresh tea. Before he could, Luo Bing interrupted and said not to bother, she'd serve the tea herself. She slowly sat down and began pouring the tea in the most sensual way possible. It was something she'd mastered at the brothel, and even though Lu Chao was her master, she still believed he needed to be seduced. Lu Chao started thinking that his sister wasn't just angry before, she was probably jealous too. Meanwhile, Luo Bing was frustrated because he kept ignoring her, no matter how much effort she put in. She tried pouring tea with all the elegance she had learned, but he just sat there calmly, unimpressed. To him, her tricks felt empty. He'd seen too much in his past life for that kind of thing to move him anymore. Still, she couldn't stop staring at him. His calm gaze, the way he seemed above all worldly things, it only made her want him more. She wondered if he would ever fall for her, and the thought pushed her to try even harder. For the next 3 days, she did everything she could to stay near him, which left poor Hei Ting without his usual chores. When Hei Ting cleaned the table, she insisted she'd do it, striking a seductive pose as she wiped. Lu Chao frowned and asked if she was done because at that rate, she'd rub a hole into the table. Later, when Hei Ting carried water, she jumped in again. But instead of helping, she managed to spill it all over herself. Standing there soaked, she tried to act pitiful, saying her clothes were ruined. Lu Chao just scolded her again, saying she couldn't even fetch water properly, and told Hei Ting to escort her out. Not giving up, she sat outside the building, waiting for another chance. That night, when Hei Ting was setting the bedding, she swooped in again. She pretended to stumble into the bed, then sprawled across it with her legs up. Lu Chao's patience snapped. He barked at her, asking why she was lying in his bed fully clothed, then told Hei Ting to change the bedding again. 3 days passed quickly. Lu Chao finished his training, energy swirling around him, sweat on his face. Luo Bing stood behind him, staring in awe. He looked almost divine. When he said it was time to leave for the sect meeting, she lit up with joy, promising she'd follow his lead. He pulled out Aunt Ning's artifact, a small leaf that suddenly grew into a full-sized flying vessel. The two of them boarded, and in an instant, they were soaring above the clouds toward the rising sun. While they flew, Lu Chao muttered that his sister was still angry since she hadn't even come to say goodbye. He promised himself he'd talk to her when they got back. Luo Bing, meanwhile, was thrilled. It was her first trip alone with him. She stared at him, her mind running wild, and before she realized it, she blurted out that they could share a bed. Lu Chao spun around sharply. "What did you just say?" he demanded. She panicked, embarrassed, and tried to cover it up. He pressed her, but instead she switched tactics, showering him with praise, telling him he was special, that he'd outshine the other sect leaders, and his martial skill would crush them all. Lu Chao waved her off, saying that was enough flattery. She was stunned he didn't fall for it, but then wondered if maybe he had something else on his mind. Her eyes drifted over his body as she remembered the brothel owner's advice. There were different ways to win a man. Should she move in suddenly, or take it slow? Lu Chao noticed her acting strangely. Before he could react, she suddenly dropped to her knees in front of him, her lips parting as she leaned toward him. The moment Luo Bing leaned in too far, Lu Chao quickly pushed her back with a technique and told her to calm down. She stepped away, blushing, and he thought her background was showing a little too clearly. Trying to recover, she handed him a cup of spiritual water. He took it but told her not to serve him in that overly suggestive way. As he drank, he remembered he was the one who had saved her once. He asked for another, and she eagerly replied, "Yes, you're the master." Curious, he asked if she really liked calling him that. She hesitated, then decided to switch it up, saying she'd call him Daddy instead. Lu Chao almost choked. He snapped at her to stop talking, thinking that her training had really spoiled her, though he admitted men did that sort of thing. By then, they were nearing the meeting place, the punitive peak. It was chosen as the site for the gathering of the three sects, though no one else had arrived yet. Lu Chao figured he was on time, but maybe the others just wanted to make an entrance. Suddenly, Luo Bing spotted figures in the distance, dropping toward them like falling swords. She whispered that they looked scary. Lu Chao told her to ignore them, saying they were just junior disciples sent to stir trouble. The two landed in front of them with a show of confidence. One asked if Lu Chao was the head of the Mo sect. Instead of answering, Lu Chao just turned his back on them. Quietly, he activated the spiritual branch technique. Light glowed around him, boosting his presence until it pressed down on them like a weight. The two disciples struggled, realizing he hadn't even fought them directly yet, but they already couldn't match him. Whispering between themselves, they decided to change tactics. They bowed politely, introduced themselves as Zhong and Qing, and greeted him as sect head. It was a clever trick. By being respectful, they made it harder for him to punish them. Normally, he would only have one way out, saying the ceremonial phrase that ended greetings. But Lu Chao stayed silent, letting the pressure build. They started to panic, wondering why he wasn't playing along. Then suddenly, their bodies grew unbearably heavy, as if invisible hands were crushing them. Lu Chao smirked, thinking they wanted to play tricks, but he was the real master of tricks. Eventually, he let the pressure fade, and they collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Luo Bing watched in awe. She thought, with his power over heaven and earth, they were lucky they weren't completely destroyed. The two disciples forced themselves up. The man tried to act tough, brushing it off as a simple trick. He invited Lu Chao into a nearby gazebo to talk. Then he casually brought up the division of land within a 50-kilometer radius, claiming his sect and the Tsuan sect had already agreed on it. The woman smiled sweetly, saying Mo sect was being included too, but it was clear she thought Lu Chao's cultivation was weak and he wouldn't resist. She never finished. Lu Chao suddenly raised his hand, snapping it through the air with such speed that even the water droplets from his skin couldn't keep up. A moment later, the man screamed. His leg had been severed clean off, and he collapsed, writhing in agony. The woman froze, trembling. She couldn't believe it. He had done all that with nothing more than a single finger. The man was screaming so loud that Lu Chao finally used his power on him, cutting his voice off completely. He was still in agony, but no sound came out. Luo Bing hesitated, then thought this was just like her master. Only he could use the power of heaven and earth like that. She admired him even more, convinced he was as strong as ever. The man kept twitching in pain while his partner tried to stop the bleeding. Meanwhile, Lu Chao walked calmly with Luo Bing to the gazebo. The woman stayed behind, terrified he might cut her head off if she moved wrong. Lu Chao sat down and asked her to pour tea. She froze, unsure if he was really letting her tend her injured partner or if she was about to be punished. She touched the wounded man carefully, but her eyes kept darting back to Lu Chao. The man nearly fainted, and she felt her fear rising. Weren't the rumors saying the sect master was weak? So why did he feel so terrifying now? Suddenly, Lu Chao raised his voice, asking if she was thirsty. Her heart nearly stopped. In a flash, she grabbed her partner and bolted, convinced that staying meant death. She thought he was warning her that she was sitting too long when she should have been serving him. Lu Chao calmly said her face gave everything away, that if she failed, she'd die. Embarrassed, she admitted she talked too much. Then he told her to relax, sit beside him, enjoy the view, and wait for the other sections. She obeyed, praising him nonstop, especially the way he had cut off a leg with just one finger. She called it beautiful, and once she started flattering him, she couldn't stop. She tried every trick she knew to charm him. Lu Chao just sipped his tea, thinking she was shining with seduction so strongly that if he reacted even a little, she'd unleash all of it without holding back. The day was bright, the view was nice, and he sat quietly in the gazebo while she kept trying. Meanwhile, the other woman was running for her life. She carried her wounded partner and muttered to herself that Lu Chao was a monster. She ran as if death was chasing her. The injured man, through clenched teeth, reminded her he could still fly with his sword. She cursed herself for forgetting and immediately shot into the air with him, speeding back toward their sect. When they landed, the others rushed over, horrified at the man's condition. One disciple pointed out his mangled leg, another said his face had been struck. The sect leader and his assistant were celebrating, thinking the land would be theirs, but their joy shattered when they saw their disciples stumble in. The woman shouted that everything had gone wrong. Lu Chao had crippled her partner. The sect master was stunned and furious, calling Lu Chao a scoundrel and demanding to know how he dared. Told the injured man to explain quickly. The disciple, pale and shaking, described how Lu Chao had taken his leg with just one finger. The sect master was shocked, but the disciple added something worse. He said he felt the power of heaven and earth in that attack. Both sect leaders froze. They knew Lu Chao was supposed to be weak, stuck at the lowest stage. None of this made sense. The student who had carried the injured man said she knew something more but wasn't sure if she should talk. Her master snapped at her to stop wasting time and just say it. So she explained that a few days ago, a new talent had appeared within 50 kilometers, and it had triggered the 9 decrees of the celestial Tao. Everyone had seen it, not just her. The sect leaders froze. One of them remembered the divine sign in the sky. He had even flown there himself, eager to see who could summon the power of the immortals. He thought if it was someone from a small sect, he would just recruit them. But when he got close, there had been a terrifying explosion of energy and a voice that warned him not to spy. He didn't even hesitate. He turned and fled, certain it was a high-level cultivator. Now, sitting here, he wondered if all of that was connected to Lu Chao. Maybe Lu Chao wasn't just wielding heaven and earth power, maybe he had awakened something even greater. A chill ran down his back as he realized there must be someone powerful standing behind him. Suddenly it all made sense, why Lu Chao dared to speak so arrogantly, why he casually crippled a disciple. The thought left him trembling in his chair, drenched in sweat. His students looked at him, baffled. They thought he must have drunk too much water, maybe even lost control of himself. They had no idea he was just terrified. Meanwhile, the female sect master was coming to her own conclusion. If this was really the 9 decrees, then her sect, Gung Jin Men, was nothing compared to Mo's sect. In fact, she wasn't even worthy to polish Lu Chao's shoes. A plan started forming in her mind. She glanced at her partner, realizing he was just an obstacle now. Still, she was confident that with her beauty and charm, she could win Lu Chao's favor if she played her cards right. The male master finally barked out an order. Someone should call the elders and calculate how much debt their sect owed Mo's sect. The disciples were stunned, wondering if their leader had gone mad. When one tried to question him, he roared at her to shut up and do as he said. The woman just sighed, thinking men were either too stubborn or too soft. Time passed after that messy meeting. Suddenly, Lu Chao received a system message, which caught him off guard since he wasn't expecting one at all. Luo Bing kept staring at him, thinking again how handsome he was. The message announced that Mo's sect's reputation had risen to 501, and now even the Gung Jin Men and Suin sects were under that number. Lu Chao was pleased, taking it as a sign they had gotten the message he sent them earlier. But he soon noticed the score only inched up slowly. Half a day had passed, and it barely moved. He sighed, deciding the suffering of those 2 disciples hadn't been worth much. He'd need to find a more profitable way. As he thought, Luo Bing still openly admiring him. She was so expressive about it that he finally asked if something was on his face, maybe flowers or dirt. She blinked out of her daze, flustered, and insisted it was nothing. Lu Chao was puzzled. Why did she get so worked up over such small questions? Why couldn't she just be straightforward? But then again, he didn't really understand people at her level. He had no idea that some held on to secret feelings as tightly as a thief guards stolen treasure. Over at the Mo sect on Duning Peak, Lu Dong sat thinking about her brother. She had no idea what he and that troublesome disciple were up to. If they dared to fool around, she swore she'd rip their heads off. But then she reminded herself he had gone to discuss land and resources, so he was probably focused on serious business. Still, she didn't know how the meeting went. The thought made her angry again, especially when she remembered that wives usually didn't get along with their husbands' sisters. Nearby, her student Xiao Qiu asked if she was circulating her energy correctly. Without even looking, Lu Dong told her to start over. Xiao Qiu was shocked. She was exhausted from practicing and complained that she was talented and couldn't possibly be wrong. But since her master insisted, she forced herself to keep going. She muttered to herself that the master was distracted, and for her cheekiness, she got smacked. Suddenly, energy wrapped around her. Lu Dong was impressed. This girl had really mastered qi circulation in just a few days. She smiled, patted her student on the back, and told her she had potential. Xiao Qiu beamed at the praise, saying she was working hard and maybe one day, as a junior sister, she could follow the master when he went down the mountain. That sentence wiped the smile off Lu Dong's face. Why did everyone want to follow her brother? She frowned, but then remembered she herself always wanted to be near him when she was young, so she let it slide. She just told Xiao Qiu that for small matters, she didn't need to go down from the peak. Xiao Qiu was puzzled. Why wasn't she allowed? Lu Dong explained that as her last student, a closed-door disciple, she had to stay. The girl looked even more confused and asked why the last disciple couldn't leave. Lu Dong gave a sharp answer, because there are no doors. She walked away, feeling heavy, thinking she might have been too harsh. Xiao Qiu was still young, after all. When she turned back, Xiao Qiu suddenly stood and smiled mischievously. She said she understood now. This was about living alone. Lu Dong froze. She demanded to know what else her brother had told her. Xiao Qiu went on, saying it wasn't about living alone but about leaving behind a truth for the future. She lifted her chin proudly and declared that when a dragon awakens, its roar shakes mountains. Lu Dong felt a chill. Her shadow fell across the girl as she stormed forward. Xiao Qiu grew nervous, glancing around. But instead of scolding, Lu Dong swept her into her arms and told her firmly that she would stay on the mountain until old age. Xiao Qiu was startled when she sensed movement in the sky. For a second, she thought it might be her master returning, but it turned out to be another man. He was flying proudly on a huge golden sword, and Lu Dong immediately recognized him as a direct disciple of the sword sect. That sect was powerful and famous, with its disciples ranked by their swords, bronze for outer disciples, silver for inner, and gold for direct disciples. This guy's sword gleamed gold, which meant he was personally taught by one of the sect's great masters. Lu Dong sized him up. She guessed he was around the second level, maybe early third. If he was mid-third, she might have a harder time, but for now she decided to hold back her strength and just watch. The man, meanwhile, stomped on his sword, making it vibrate with power. Sword cries echoed down, but instead of being impressed, Lu Dong rolled her eyes. She thought, when my brother shows off, it's charming. When this guy does it, I just want to smack him. Xiao Qiu noticed it too and muttered, why's he copying master? That made Lu Dong laugh out loud. She couldn't agree more. Then she decided they'd better formally receive the guest, though really she just wanted to play along with the act. The disciple was Chen Xiao, and he was furious. He had arrived, used the sword cry, and yet nobody came to greet him. To him, this was disrespectful of the highest order. He was the personal disciple of a sword sect elder and best friend of you, and here he was, being ignored. He grumbled that most sect wouldn't be getting resources this time. But then, as he was sulking, he spotted someone, Luo Bing. She practically glowed with beauty, and Chen Zhao's jaw nearly dropped. He thought she was like a snow lotus blooming in the cold. Then he noticed another figure, Lu Chao, and that stunned him even more. Lu Chao stood there effortlessly, sunlight and leaves swirling around him, looking like some untouchable figure. Chen Xiao told himself he had to learn this trick so he could look just as impressive next time. He tried to pull himself together. When Luo Bing glanced his way, his knees almost buckled. He quickly introduced himself with great pride, direct disciple of the sword sect, personal student of the second elder, second-level cultivator, Chen Xiao. Surely, with all that status, the girl would swoon and the Mo sect disciple would freeze in fear. But Luo Bing only kept gazing at Lu Chao, looking amazed at him instead. Chen Xiao felt the sting instantly. Then, to his horror, Lu Chao and Luo Bing simply passed by him as if he wasn't even there. Being ignored hit him harder than any sword strike. Angry and embarrassed, he sped up and blocked their path, demanding to know who Lu Chao was. Lu Chao only smiled, lifted his hand, and the mist around them turned into drops of water that floated in the air. Then he kept walking up the mountain with Luo Bing, leaving Chen Xiao confused and fuming. As Lu Chao climbed higher, the sun seemed to shine right behind him. The droplets circling him formed a rainbow, making him look almost otherworldly. He stopped there, showing clearly that he was the head of the Mo sect. Chen Xiao was stunned. This was just the leader of one of the weakest sects, ranked among the bottom 100, and yet here he stood, stronger than him. Chen Xiao couldn't accept it. He told himself he could always rely on his status to pressure Lu Chao if things got tough. He spoke coldly, saying he was there on orders from his sect and was shocked at the way he was being treated. Lu Chao calmly asked him what he had just called him. Chen Xiao replied, a bit unsure, that he had called him Chief Lu. Then Lu Chao asked what his position was. Chen Xiao snapped back proudly that he was a direct disciple of the sword sect. Lu Chao brushed it off, saying that being a disciple was still just being a disciple, and if needed, he would teach him some manners. That reply stunned Chen Xiao. He thought this man had to be a fool. Direct disciples like him were destined for big things, possibly even elder positions, and likely to break past the 5th level. Yet this small sect leader dared to act so casually with him. He gritted his teeth, annoyed that Lu Chao wasn't flattering him like everyone else did. On the sidelines, Lu Dong just thought her brother was at it again, showing off in his favorite way. Chen Xiao wondered if maybe Lu Chao wasn't bad after all, but something even greater, and he wanted to find out. Chen Xiao concentrated and used a special vision technique to probe Lu Chao's level. He announced that Lu Chao was at the 1st level, 5th celestial layer. But Lu Chao only smirked and asked if he was sure. Before Chen Xiao could answer, Lu Chao waved his hand, and blue light erupted around him. His strength instantly jumped to the first level, 6th layer. Chen Xiao froze. And then, unbelievably, that blue energy transformed, pushing him up even further, to the first level, 7th layer. Chen Xiao's face went pale, drenched in sweat. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This man had hidden so much power right under his nose. Lu Dong sighed, thinking her brother was overdoing it again, but she also couldn't help remembering all the years they'd shared. No matter what, he was still her big brother, the one she admired most. Meanwhile, Lu Chao thought back to his past life. Chen Xiao wasn't unfamiliar, he remembered him from a game called Fuga. In that world, Chen Xiao was always the loud, bragging side character who stirred up trouble but pushed the plot forward. He wasn't strong on his own, always relying on you to bail him out, but he was important in his own way. Lu Chao considered whether he should spend the experience points he'd been saving for over 20 years just to crush this arrogant disciple, but he shook his head. It wasn't worth wasting points on petty disputes, better to invest them in sword consciousness later. What he'd already shown was more than enough to scare Chen Xiao. He decided the best outcome was simple: keep the resources, let Chen Xiao leave, and move on. Lu Chao told the sword sect student to follow him, and after what he had just witnessed, the guy quickly agreed. As he trailed behind, he noticed the boat was actually a flying leaf. He recognized it as one of Aunt Ning's rare artifacts, though part of him wondered if it was just a flawless fake. Still, it surprised him, because he remembered Aunt Ning and you had recently gone down the mountain together. That made him wonder, could Lu Chao be the secret student you had once mentioned? Besides his main mission, Chen Xiao had a personal one. He had to uncover the identity of Yu's hidden classmate. He remembered Yu had an old rival among the sword sect's disciples, someone he called his sworn enemy. For years, no one spoke of it, but after Yu and the elder returned, the subject came up again. Yu had admitted that while his sword skills were refined, this mysterious student's skills were even sharper. Hearing that had shaken Chen Xiao, but Yu had only told him to work harder. Eventually, Yu revealed one more clue. This hidden student was in the south of Qingzhou, in the Qinglong district. Piece by piece, everything pointed to one name, Lu Chao. Meanwhile, Lu Chao calmly guided the leaf boat, completely unaware of the storm of thoughts Chen Xiao was having behind him. Chen Xiao convinced himself that if Lu Chao really was the one, then he'd share a powerful secret with his best friend Yu, and just the idea of that thrilled him. But Luo Bing, watching from the side, noticed Chen Xiao's gaze. She frowned, thinking he was staring too much at Lu Chao's back. She muttered that he looked suspicious, almost as if he was eyeing his spine, and joked about wanting to shield her master. Lu Chao snapped, saying if that guy tried anything, he'd tear him apart. Luo Bing blinked in shock and asked what she even meant by that. Lu Chao got annoyed, told her to shut up, and warned he'd kick her out of the sect if she kept saying nonsense. Luo Bing sulked, upset at her own stray thoughts. She had waited so long for her young master and wasn't about to let anyone else touch him. Then, out of nowhere, a shadow passed overhead. A massive bird, an eagle-like beast, swooped down beside the boat. On its back sat a girl in striking armor, casually drinking water as if riding a giant eagle was nothing. Lu Chao was stunned. For once, he felt the same shock and awe that others usually felt when they looked at him. He wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. In the next instant, the great bird spread its wings and shot away, vanishing into the sky. The eagle passed by Chen Xiao as well, leaving him equally shaken. He wondered what it meant, seeing that girl and beast today, but reasoned that fate wasn't ready yet. If she appeared once, she would appear again. Meanwhile, Xiao Qiu and Lu Dong were off to the side, teasing each other and betting on how that disciple would eventually fall, headfirst or otherwise. Moments later, a scream cut through the air. A figure was seen tumbling down from the sky. The two girls burst into laughter, proud that their guess had been right, while the poor man below cried out for help. The elders of the Gungjin sect were in the middle of a heated meeting. They kept going in circles about how much support they should give the Mo sect, and no decision was being made. One elder finally spoke up with a plan: give just enough resources to avoid trouble, but not so much that they'd take a loss. The sect leader snapped at him, demanding why he didn't say this earlier. The elder explained that his idea was simple: each person should contribute a little wealth and send one capable disciple to Lu Chao. The leader and the other elders were stunned. They thought this idea was basically asking for trouble and told him he was crazy if he was serious. While they argued, the leader's partner smirked to herself, saying she had her own way of solving the issue. For her, it was easy. Men can always be handled with charm, she joked, and if one isn't enough, two will definitely work. She asked who would be the right person for the task, since the chosen one had to be beautiful inside and out. One of the girls quickly stepped up, saying she was the perfect choice since she had already met Lu Chao before. But the sect leader shook his head, doubting she was good enough. Still, the girl believed the leader would eventually pick her. She even made a cryptic remark, something like, "Let the rain fall on her," which everyone took as a lucky sign. Just then, a flying sword arrived carrying a message. The girl thought it might be from a friend of their master, someone from the sect of the 100 intermediaries. She wondered why he'd write at such a moment. When the sect president read the letter, she lit up with joy and told everyone they needed to discuss this right away. The message said that a direct disciple from the sword sect, one personally trained by the second elder, had come to their region. Everyone was thrilled, whispering that their luck had finally turned. The Gung-jin sect leader instantly declared that the resource problem was no longer their main concern. Finding this sword sect disciple was the new top priority. Another leader told her female disciples to use every method they had, even their charm, to win his trust. The students nodded right away. The girls were excited, already daydreaming about how their lives might change if they succeeded. Some favorites quickly stood out, ready to do anything for the task. The male disciples overheard and teased them, saying, "Remember, a woman is like clothing, but a brother is like family." Meanwhile, in the Mo sect's shadow, Lu Chao and Luo Bing finally arrived back on the ground, where they were warmly greeted by his sister and Xiao Qiu. They gave him their respect and welcomed him to the city. Qin Xiao, still shaky from his fall, could barely lift his head. When he saw how warmly Lu Chao was treated, he muttered angrily to himself, "How dare they treat him like this?" But the next moment, he froze. Two girls from the Mo sect caught his attention. Their beauty stunned him, and he thought to himself, how can such a small sect have both a dragon and a phoenix? His jealousy flared when he realized both of them revolved around Lu Chao. He tried to shake off the feeling, slapping his own face lightly, reminding himself that he was a direct disciple of the second elder and the close friend of the great Yu. Why should he be jealous of a small sect? But then he decided to take a closer look. He used his spiritual power and was shocked. Lu Dong, Lu Chao's younger sister, was already at the second level of the 9th celestial layer, almost at great completion. For someone so young, her strength was unbelievable, far beyond what even the direct disciples of the sword sect could match. He stood there in disbelief, realizing that the Mo sect must be hiding far more talent than anyone imagined. Lu Chao praised his sister, telling her she had done well and knew how to carry herself properly. Then he turned to the group and said it was time to head to the main hall. In his mind, he thought this was the right chance to win over Qin Xiao, especially since he still hadn't spent the money he had brought with him. To Lu Chao, Qin Xiao was just another disciple of the sword sect, nothing special compared to him, who stood tall and impressive. As they walked, Qin Xiao couldn't help but admire the beauty of the Mo sect's buildings. Even a mid-level sect normally didn't have such elegant architecture. And when the sunlight fell on Lu Chao, it looked like the rays themselves followed him, making him seem even more extraordinary. Qin Xiao still couldn't believe that this was the very student Yu had spoken of in secret. When they entered the Great Hall, Qin Xiao was given a seat at the main table. Behind him, Luo Bing appeared, carefully serving tea. He got excited, thinking she was so close that he could almost feel her presence. He even closed his eyes, waiting to catch her fragrance while the tea was being poured. But when he opened them, he was surprised. She had served him so gracefully that she hadn't even stepped close. Everyone around the table exchanged looks, thinking this might hurt his pride. Qin Xiao quickly comforted himself, telling himself she must just be shy and principled, probably acting this way with all men. But then, right after that, Luo Bing leaned in and poured tea for Lu Chao at the edge of his chair. That completely shocked Qin Xiao. He felt a sting of pity for himself, such a noble and respected student, yet he wasn't the one being noticed. At that moment, Lu Chao coughed deliberately. The student didn't understand and asked Lu Chao if he was okay. He calmly drank his tea, and Lu Chao wondered why he still hadn't given him the money. Did he really just want to stay for lunch? Breaking the silence, Luo Bing politely asked if this senior disciple had come to their sect for any official matter. Qin Zhao's eyes lit up at her respectful tone. He stood proudly and explained that the sword sect leader had ordered him to distribute resources to allied sects, and everything was already prepared. With a confident smile, he showed them a storage ring filled with spirit stones, healing medicines, and rare materials. It was all meant for the Mo sect. Lu Chao didn't react too strongly on the outside, but inside, he was delighted. With Aunt Ning's teachings, these materials would be very useful. He smiled slightly, lifted his hand, and summoned his water power. Qin Zhao's jaw almost dropped. The enchanted ring floated inside a stream of clear water, carried effortlessly into Lu Chao's palm. Qin Zhao thought it was like watching the power of heaven and earth itself. His mind raced. This wasn't just skill, this was enlightenment. By the end, Qin Zhao was overjoyed. In his heart, he was nearly certain now, Lu Chao had to be that hidden disciple you had mentioned. Lu Chao thought the sword sect really had deep pockets. He accepted the resources calmly but reminded everyone that the disciple also mentioned an important mission. He explained that since the Mo sect was subordinate to the sword sect, receiving resources was natural, but helping sword sect disciples was also their duty. Then he revealed something serious. There had been reports of demonic cultivators appearing nearby. The moment those words dropped, everyone in the hall froze. Lu Chao himself was startled but immediately placed his sword on the table, showing he was ready to act. He quickly asked where these people had been seen. This sudden action shocked Qin Xiao, but also reassured him. He thought, most people panic at news like this, but Lu Chao's first instinct is to ask where they are. That's the courage of a true sword cultivator. Now, demonic cultivators weren't the same as normal enemies. They were humans who had fused their blood with beasts. This gave them terrifying strength, but it also twisted them. Some even lost their human shape, turning into strange creatures. Their biggest power was that they could transform into the animal they were linked with, making them unpredictable. Unlike the demons of the Celestial Empire, these ones had very little reason or intelligence. They acted on instinct, aggressive and dangerous. And the scariest part? The more they consumed, the stronger they became. That's why most sects warned their disciples, if you ever come across one, don't fight, just run. Chen Xiao explained that the demonic cultivator they'd spotted was only at the second level but had a pack of strange creatures with him. Lu Qiao looked a bit disappointed, thinking such a weak opponent wasn't worth his time. Chen Xiao didn't understand why, but he thought maybe Lu Qiao was hoping for more information about a greater threat. Still, Lu Qiao promised that if Chen Xiao needed support, he'd help him. Chen Xiao officially requested his assistance, secretly hoping this would be his chance to see Lu Qiao's true strength. If Lu Qiao really was powerful, then he had to be that hidden disciple everyone whispered about. But if he turned out weak, Chen Xiao thought he'd take care of the demonic cultivator himself and use that victory to restore his pride. Just then, a system task appeared for Lu Qiao: finish the demonic cultivator. The reward was tempting, 50,000 experience points and a yellow-grade artifact ticket. Without hesitation, he accepted. He told Chen Xiao that tomorrow they would go down the mountain together and deal with the demonic cultivator. Chen Xiao felt a little uneasy at the firm tone, but he still agreed. Meanwhile, Lu Qiao looked at the mountains around them and thought, this land belongs to the Mo sect. If anyone wants to stir up trouble here, they'll have to answer to my sword first. After the student left, Lu Dong suddenly remembered she hadn't asked her brother about the meeting he had just attended. She felt a little tense, especially since that annoying disciple had seen her talking with Lu Qiao but didn't leave quickly. Lu Qiao simply told Luo Bing to let her master know about it. Lu Dong wasn't too happy, but Luo Bing was over the moon. She started praising Lu Qiao, saying he was like a true immortal who made the big sects tremble while also making Mo sect stronger for the future. She said he was like someone who had descended straight from the heavens. Hearing this, Lu Qiao couldn't help but feel pleased with himself. Then Lu Dong quietly recalled a prophecy from years ago, something about the Qiu Shui sect and Gung Jin sect. When Lu Qiao asked what she was mumbling, she brushed it off, saying it wasn't important and that those sects probably wouldn't cause trouble. But then she asked if she could join him on tomorrow's trip, since the demonic cultivator might be strong. Lu Qiao looked at her and thought she was just worried about him. She, on the other hand, wondered why he wasn't answering, because if he refused, she was ready to pinch his cheek. Finally, he said if she wanted to come, she could. She instantly lit up with excitement. Lu Qiao figured it would be smart to let her join, keep her monsters with her, and also use the chance to deal with Chen Xiao while having her as backup. Luo Bing, however, was anxious. She didn't want her master or young master to face danger without her. Just as she was about to speak up, Lu Dong cut her off sharply, saying she shouldn't even think about it, saying, if it's forbidden, then it's forbidden, which made Luo Bing sigh to herself. But then Lu Qiao turned serious. He told Luo Bing she couldn't come this time because she had no idea how terrifying demonic cultivators could be. With her current strength, she wouldn't be able to help and might even become a burden. He encouraged her to train harder. The siblings left her standing in the hallway with those words. Luo Bing stood there thinking. Not long ago, she had almost caught up to her leader in cultivation, but recently, he had advanced again at lightning speed. If the gap kept growing, just like Lu Dong had said, she would stop being useful and only hold him back. Determined, she promised herself she would push harder so she could always stay by his side. That marked the end of a long, busy day at the Mo sect. Their sect was surrounded by natural beauty, peaceful and calm. But that night, from one of the cabins, strange sounds echoed. Inside, Lu Qiao was cultivating at an incredible pace, trying to earn more experience. The process was harsh on his body, his breathing grew rough, and he started coughing heavily. He thought to himself that others might spend money or effort to gain strength, but for him, the price was his own life force. The technique he used was painfully cruel, and with every bit of progress, his body felt like it was being pushed past its limits. That night, the graveyard maid suddenly showed up at Lu Qiao's place. She seemed like she wanted to say something, but her voice wasn't clear. Lu Qiao asked if she needed anything, half joking that if she came looking for his essence again, it wouldn't work this time. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she made strange gestures, pointing toward Chen Zhao's house and moving her hands like she was holding a blade. At first, Lu Qiao thought she meant she wanted him to finish Chen Zhao, but she shook her head and acted out again. Slowly, he realized she wasn't talking about Chen Zhao at all, but about a demonic cultivator. What she wanted was the remains of that cultivator. When he asked if she needed the whole body, she shook her hand in a way that showed she only needed the head. Lu Qiao frowned, saying that the demonic cultivator was very strong and it would be hard to take him down without damaging the body. If she wanted something that specific, then the reward would have to be higher. The maid went silent at first, but then she stretched out her spiritual hand and revealed an object. Lu Chao's eyes widened. What she held was a rare scroll, a blue-grade sword technique from the Autumn School. Even mid-tier sects found this kind of treasure hard to get. The maid quickly pulled it back, making it clear she would only hand it over after the job was done. Still, Lu Chao was thrilled. To him, this was worth far more than the remains she was asking for. Plus, with his system's reward on top, it was like earning double. In his past life, the best he ever managed to buy was a mid-level technique called Water Dragon Enters the Sea. But this new one, Autumn Cicada, seemed on another level, and he couldn't wait to test its power. He finally told her he'd take the job, partly for the reward and partly because of their strange connection. The maid simply wished him good hunting before fading away. As Lu Chao left, he couldn't stop wondering how much more treasure she might be hiding. He even asked her why she needed the remains of a demonic cultivator, but she only made unclear sounds and avoided the question. With a bitter laugh, he thought to himself that he'd never imagined someone like him could be treated as just a tool by a spirit maid. The night passed, and a fresh new day arrived. Early in the morning, Lu Dong came to her brother's place and told him it was time to leave. Lu Chao teased her, saying she was so eager for him to go that she came this early. She just laughed and said she wanted to feel like a sneaky thief. When he stepped out, she proudly told him not to worry because she had already packed everything. Stuff for sleeping, brushing, washing, even a hidden weapon for battle. Lu Chao smiled helplessly, thinking to himself what to do with such a serious sister. She then reminded him to call that sword sect disciple so they could set off. Lu Chao focused and used his special ability to send a message. The disciple, Chen Xiao, was still in bed when he received it, and it annoyed him so much that he shouted his name loudly, insisting he wasn't just any disciple, but Chen Xiao. Soon, Lu Chao and his sister arrived at the main gate of the Mo sect. The protective seals on the gate were broken, and Lu Chao looked a bit upset. His sister quickly comforted him, saying she had already started studying the seals and would fix them soon. He knew her ability to learn was amazing, but improving them would require a lot of money. Still, he hugged her and told her he would find a way because that was his responsibility as her brother. She smiled happily, grateful that no one stood between them. Just then, Chen Xiao came running, again shouting from afar that his name wasn't just disciple, but Chen Xiao. Lu Chao nodded and said it was good that he finally arrived so they could leave. Chen Xiao was surprised to see that the leaf boat was already being prepared. He stood tall, saying that without him, they wouldn't even know where to go. He showed off, saying he would track the demonic cultivator, and pulled out an unusual object while casting a movement spell. Lu Chao interrupted, casually explaining that it was a special vessel used for tracing energy and told Chen Xiao to start the ritual. Chen Xiao grumbled inside, feeling humiliated again, but he began anyway. Lu Dong asked how her brother even knew about such a thing since their sect didn't have it. Lu Chao replied casually that he had seen it once in a special place, with special people. She was surprised but didn't question further. Soon, the object began to react. Chen Xiao got on his sword, flying higher, and explained that the closer they got to the target, the stronger it vibrated. His sister curiously asked what else the object was used for, and Lu Chao quickly brushed it off with a random excuse, saying it was handy for hammering nails. Chen Xiao then shouted that the vibration was getting too strong to hold, which meant they were close. Lu Dong looked ahead and realized they were reaching the fire forest. She remembered the last time they came here, where a rare herb grew, and warned that there were many dangerous creatures around. If the demonic cultivator was hiding here, he might be very strong. Still, Lu Chao told them to descend confidently, saying it was time to settle the score. Lu Dong had forgotten one thing: her brother was never afraid of anything. Chen Xiao, on the other hand, kept worrying about the fire forest. That place was full of beasts, and if they really faced the enemy inside, things could get messy fast. The monster could even control those beasts, and then they'd all be surrounded. But when Chen Xiao turned back, he saw Lu Chao smiling calmly and telling them to move ahead. He couldn't figure out why Lu Chao looked so cheerful, but then it hit him. True cultivators weren't supposed to fear anything. Leader Lu really was something else. Without wasting more time, they descended quickly into the heart of the forest. He thought to himself, this forest had both beasts and a strong cultivator. That meant a lot of experience points to earn, and a real man had to be fearless to grab those opportunities. As they went deeper, the strange vessel in Chen Zhao's hand vibrated harder and harder, almost slipping away. He warned them that the target was close and they needed to be careful. Lu Chao, however, just told him loudly to hurry and lead the way. Chen Xiao was annoyed. He wasn't used to being treated like a servant. Even leaders of mid-level sects gave him more respect. Soon, the beasts around them began to appear one by one, their presence heavy in the air. Chen Xiao muttered that they were getting really close now. Meanwhile, Lu Chao had a passing thought: if this vessel was stuck into an enemy, would it start shaking like crazy? He also remembered that if their sect had this kind of tool earlier, maybe he could have tracked the one who had destroyed his family long ago. He regretted that now, because beasts usually tear apart everything, except sometimes leaving the head behind. That might make it harder to complete the maid's request. Lu Chao powered up, ready for action. Lu Dong quickly reminded him that they first needed to hide their energy. Chen Xiao knew that trick too but wasn't as skilled at controlling it. When he looked ahead, he He spotted the monster and thought that if their energy was hidden properly, he could just sneak in and finish it. Right then, Lu Chao suddenly stopped him and said not to move. Qin Xiao was furious. Why stop him when he was ready to end it quickly? But Lu Chao calmly explained that they'd already been spotted. When Qin Xiao turned around, he noticed two huge pairs of glowing red eyes in the darkness. One belonged to a level 21 black flying dog, the other to a level 25 scorpion lion. Qin Xiao panicked and shouted they were facing monsters, but Lu Chao stepped forward confidently, saying it didn't matter who they were, he would take them down. He clashed with the flying dog first. As it came at him, he channeled his strength, kicked the beast hard, and sent it crashing back up the mountain with so much force that the ground shook. Qin Xiao was watching closely and thought to himself, this was exactly how a real sword cultivator should fight. Still, deep down, he was nervous. Just as Lu Chao landed, another monster rushed in from behind. But before it could strike, the beast let out a roar of pain. Qin Xiao had jumped in fast and slashed at its paw. He shouted for leader Lu to step back, saying he'd cover him. For a moment, Qin Xiao actually looked like a reliable fighter. Meanwhile, the flying dog monster came charging at Lu Chao again, this time saying it could finally finish him off properly. Energy was pouring out of it as it attacked with sharp speed. Qin Xiao didn't want to look weak, so he jumped onto the other beast and launched precise strikes one after another. Lu Chao turned, surprised, noticing that the monster itself seemed wary of how Qin Xiao was swinging his sword. It was unusual, even strange. The flying dog came swooping down again. Lu Chao knew that without using the sword's true essence, he wouldn't be able to hurt it much. Plus, he could feel a strong cultivator nearby, waiting for the right moment to strike. He stopped holding back. In the blink of an eye, his power burst out, spreading like a shockwave. Lu Dong was relieved. She thought it was about time her brother stopped hiding his strength. The monsters didn't seem intimidated though. In fact, they almost looked excited, as if this fight was entertainment. But when they felt that sword aura, even they realized Lu Chao was different. Qin Zhao's mind was blown. He thought, this guy must be a hidden disciple of some legendary group. No, maybe even beyond that. To him, Lu Chao wasn't just talented, he was an unmatched sword master. If that was true, then there were now two unrivaled geniuses in their generation, Lu Chao and Yu. The thought thrilled him. In the middle of this, Qin Xiao made a mistake. He turned his back. The monster saw its chance and lunged. Qin Xiao spun too late and was struck hard, sent flying across the battlefield. Lu Chao was shocked. A level 25 beast had just overwhelmed a level 30 cultivator. Still, he admired Qin Xiao's trust in his sword sect's defensive techniques. The flying dog came at Lu Chao again, furious. This time, Lu Chao went all out, channeling his strength, and told Qin Xiao to watch closely if he wanted to see what real experience looked like. His strike landed with explosive force, and the huge beast was sent flying far into the distance. He warned Qin Xiao never to underestimate any enemy. Qin Xiao bowed dramatically, thanking him, secretly feeling like he was slowly becoming Lu Chao's follower. But before they could breathe, the forest shook with an even louder roar. Something far stronger was coming. Lu Chao turned sharply. The true boss had arrived. Out of the darkness stepped a massive steel rhinoceros, level 27, with a demonic cultivator named Lolan standing on its back. Lolan sneered, mocking Lu Chao, saying a low-level cultivator had dared to fight his beast. He ordered the flying dog to attack again, promising it new wings if it devoured the warrior. The creature's power spiked even higher. Then Lolan shifted his attention toward Qin Xiao, clearly planning to take him down next. Qin Xiao gritted his teeth, charged forward, and unleashed a flurry of clean, precise sword strikes. The monster staggered, badly wounded. He shouted back at Lolan, asking if he really thought so little of leader Lu. Lolan only laughed, saying there was no need to take such small fry seriously. He claimed Lu Chao was nothing compared to him. He said a demon like him couldn't even imagine who Lu Chao really was. Watching this, Lu Dong couldn't help but think, oh no, has my brother's confidence started rubbing off on everyone around him? The monstrous flying dog started zipping around super fast, back and forth, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Lu Chao knew he had to take out at least one opponent quickly so his team wouldn't get caught up in the mess. The dog charged with its strongest move, and Lu Chao had only a few seconds to react. He steadied himself and unleashed his own powerful counter, something known as the soul-shattering technique. The clash was huge. The dog's attack couldn't push through, and at the same time, it couldn't keep fighting either. It was injured mid-attack, and an explosion of energy started forming. Lu Chao quickly wrapped his own power around the blast to make sure his friends wouldn't get hurt. Even the demonic cultivator in the shadows was caught off guard. He threw up his own defense, stunned that his flying dog, one of his strongest, had just been taken down. Meanwhile, Qin Xiao sat nearby with the other beast and smugly reminded himself that he'd said this before. Lu Chao was bound to become the second strongest warrior in the world. The first spot, of course, he reserved for his colleague Yu. Then, Lu Chao suddenly got a system notification. He'd completed the task of finishing the black flying dog and received 20,000 experience points. He was thrilled. Just for a dog, he'd gotten enough to push himself straight into the next stage. He needed 18,000 to level up, and now he had extra. Without wasting time, he upgraded from level 17 to 18, glowing with a bright blue light as his health and energy fully restored. His sister Lu Dong and the disciple were stunned. Lu Dong thought to herself, "Again? My brother's leveling up more and more often these days." If this continued, she would fall far behind. Chen Xiao also noticed and quickly realized that Lu Chao wasn't just fighting, he was using these battles as a way to grow stronger on the spot. The demonic cultivator got annoyed. He muttered that it didn't matter what Lu Chao was doing, because in the end, they'd all belong to him anyway. He decided he'd finish Lu Chao first, then go after Chen Xiao. Lu Chao snapped back at him, calling him a coward hiding behind a cloak, scared to even show his face. That insult hit hard. The demonic cultivator roared angrily, asking how Lu Chao dared say that. But Lu Chao waved him off, saying there was no need for talk. If he wanted to fight, then fight. To him, the guy was nothing more than a bug who thought too highly of himself. Infuriated, the demonic cultivator ordered his massive steel rhinoceros to charge, and the ground shook as the beast rushed forward. But right then, Chen Xiao decided it was his turn. He activated a brand new technique, and instantly the entire place was filled with blinding light. The move was so strong it tore straight through the monster's weapon. The demonic cultivator was completely shocked. He didn't even understand what had just happened. When the light finally faded, Chen Xiao was already calmly putting his sword back in its sheath. The monster had been caught in the attack and was left powerless. Chen Xiao simply said that creatures like these had no right to even come near Leader Lu. He stood tall, pretending like it was nothing, though inside he knew he'd poured every bit of strength into that move. To keep up appearances, he even redirected all the sweat on his body to his back using spiritual energy, just so Lu Chao wouldn't see how much effort it took. Lu Dong noticed this little trick and thought to herself, "Wow, he's just as crazy as my brother." But she also realized, in his own way, Chen Xiao had figured out the real essence of what this battle was about. The demonic cultivator started freaking out because his steel rhinoceros, which he thought would reach the peak of its power with him, had just been defeated. He got furious, shoved his hand into the rhinoceros, and threatened it, saying he'd make sure its effort wasn't wasted. Lu Dong and Chen Xiao were shocked. Lu Dong immediately realized the situation was dangerous. The demon wanted to grab the crystal, and demonic cultivators were notorious for consuming anything they could to get stronger. The demon activated the power of the crystal and ordered his rhinoceros to hold off for now. He planned to use the crystal's energy and the blood of a whole village to restore its memory. The scene was terrifying. He seemed ready to absorb the crystal himself to gain more power. But before he could react, Lu Chao moved at lightning speed. It was like a portal opened in front of him, and suddenly he was standing right in front of the demon, holding the red crystal. He commented on how twisted the demonic world was, mourning a friend while using its power at the same time. Lu Dong noticed her brother's water abilities were getting stronger, and Chen Xiao was amazed that Lu Chao could grab something from so far away. The demon demanded the crystal back, but Lu Chao used a special spell to send it straight to a secure vault. He even joked that he didn't understand the demon's threats because, technically, the demon's body would belong to him anyway, thanks to the maid's request. Both Lu Dong and Chen Xiao were intrigued, but Lu Chao quickly told them to stop thinking weird things. The demon got even angrier and started releasing massive black energy, awakening all the monsters in the fire forest. Dark energy particles spread everywhere, making the number of hostile creatures grow quickly. Chen Xiao panicked, realizing if they didn't stop them, they'd be facing all the monsters at once. Lu Dong also got tense. She couldn't hide her power in this situation because her brother's safety came first. The demon boasted about his strength and even threatened villages nearby. But then, out of nowhere, a water balloon appeared in front of him. A water hand shot out like a portal, grabbed him by the throat, and caught him completely off guard. Even though he was controlling all his monsters, he couldn't avoid it. Lu Chao held him in place and reminded him that no monster could protect him anymore. The demon realized he was in a terrible situation, started panicking, and promised he'd never come back or harm anyone again. Lu Chao remembered what the demon had done in the past and delivered a powerful strike through the water portal. The demon collapsed, and the energy controlling the monsters began to fade. Lu Dong sighed in relief, thinking she almost had to jump in with her sword. Chen Xiao was amazed and a little scared. He realized that when Lu Dong had been ready to fight, she had actually released part of her superpower, and it was almost as strong as Lu Chao's. He quickly looked around, trying to find where his master was. Chen Xiao had a funny thought. He realized someone super powerful must have been quietly protecting Lu Chao, but quickly dismissed it. Leader Lu was strong enough to handle anything himself. Then it hit him. Lu Chao had been looking out for them the whole time. Even though he acted like he didn't care, he had sent invisible protection to keep Chen Xiao safe. Lu Dong watched Chen Xiao, wondering if he'd completely lost it from fear or just gone a little crazy. Meanwhile, Lu Chao got a system message saying he'd completed the task and could claim his reward. He smiled confidently, ready to grab it. He had earned a huge amount of experience points for finishing the mission, and he immediately felt stronger. Standing there with the reward, Lu Chao checked the ring the spirit had given him. It had lots of useful items. He also noticed that the demon had a hidden object, which could unlock a secret storyline and a hidden task. He was surprised. This was something he hadn't seen before. Carefully, he took the item from the demon's finger and told Lu Dong to clean up the battlefield and handle the remaining monsters. While she did that, he studied the object, thinking it might reveal a secret mission. Chen Xiao asked about the demon's body, but Lu Chao said they only needed the head to complete the mission. Chen Xiao respectfully agreed. He knew that without Lu Chao's help, he wouldn't have been able to finish the demon and complete the sect's task. He also realized that Lu Chao was a secret senior disciple of Yu, and knowing this made him feel closer to his master. Suddenly, Lu Chao flew up on his leaf flyer and called out to Chen Xiao, who laughed like an excited kid. Chen Xiao said he was still on a mission, but Lu Chao told him he could tag along. The disciple didn't want to leave yet. He wanted to learn more and had a question. As they flew over the fire forest, he asked why Lu Chao never fully sheathed his sword during the fight. Lu Chao explained that the demon wasn't worthy of that. Chen Xiao was speechless. He finally understood how a true sword cultivator should act and thought every sword disciple should follow Lu Chao's example. Even though his journey had started small, it had now taken an important turn because of what he had learned from his master. Lu Dong was a bit annoyed that another person had now been infected by her brother's influence, but as long as Lu Chao was safe, she didn't care. They kept moving toward home, and as they got closer, they noticed a crowd gathering in the square. Lu Dong pointed out that these were people from the Gongjin and Qiu Shui sections. They were clearly surprised to see that Chen Xiao was near Lu Chao and were searching for him there. The leaders froze as Lu Chao and his group landed, and he casually asked what was going on. One of the clan leaders explained that every 10 years they divided cultivation resources, and now they were managing things on their own. Lu Chao just listened, taking it all in. Meanwhile, the other clan leader was more interested in why Lu Chao looked so impressive now. She wasn't surprised that the girl had offered to take him because she wanted him for herself. She had thought the disciple was her favorite, but he was too young for that, so it was better to handle it herself. She mentioned that they were willing to yield when it came to resources. At that point, Chen Xiao spoke up, saying he had handled cases like this before in the sword sect and asked Lu Chao if he could take the lead. Lu Chao smiled and agreed, realizing the boy was becoming very useful. He gave Chen Xiao a nod and a friendly pat on the shoulder, signaling that he accepted him. Now Lu Chao was already thinking about how to make the best use of Chen Xiao. He told Lu Dong to follow him, and Chen Xiao took leader Lin by the arm, asking her to follow as well. She tried not to show disappointment, wondering if she would even get a chance to interact with Lu Chao. Chen Xiao thought that if he handled things well this time, he might strengthen his bond with Lu Chao and possibly have more chances to discuss matters with their mutual friend, Yu. Chen Xiao did well, meeting expectations, and Lu Chao decided it was time to claim his second reward. He went to the monument, knocked on the door, and announced he had come, with the demon's body in tow. Laughter echoed from behind the monument, and the spirit appeared, immediately handing him the promised scroll. Lu Chao took it, satisfied. As the spirit moved toward the body, he thought about giving the scroll's technique to his sister. He knew she'd likely just copy it and share it with the disciples, so it was better to keep it under his control. After all, the technique belonged to the whole sect, not just the leader's wife, and convincing Lu Dong to transfer it would probably be tricky. The maid began examining the demon's body, and Lu Chao asked why she wanted to see it. She lifted the demon's hands and started searching for something, and he quickly guessed what it was. Since she was part of the sect, he decided to let her continue. She carefully inspected the object, and when Lu Chao asked if she knew what it was, he was shocked. As she touched it, the object unexpectedly broke, revealing something even more important inside, a rare moon-shaped item. That's when Lu Chao realized it was a sign of the purple moon. At that moment, Lu Chao suddenly remembered he had seen this symbol before. He realized the Purple Moon Society was connected to the cultivator who had caused his parents' death. Curious, he asked the maid if his guess about the badge was right, and she confirmed it without words, making him realize he was on the right track. He tried to ask if the cultivator who caused his parents' death was a member of the Purple Moon Society. The maid's answer was unclear, so he had to guess what she meant. He then asked if 2 badges were needed to become a full member. From her response, he understood that 1 badge made someone a reserve member, and the more badges you had, the higher your status and power. When he asked if she knew the society, she nodded, which made him think this was his chance to learn more about the cultivator he was after. Suddenly, the maid went quiet, and Lu Chao felt frustrated because he had hoped hoped to use her to find the killer. He remembered that in his past life he already knew a bit about the Purple Moon Society. There had been a guild constantly boasting to him about tracking the society, always bragging about their donations and looking down on anyone with none. Back then, he had defeated the whole guild and even told them they couldn't compete with him, since for him it was just a small expense. Thinking about his past successes, he realized there were bigger priorities now and needed to focus. He tried asking the maid again if she really needed the badge. Holding it in his hand, memories of his parents flashed before him. The maid resumed her work, and Lu Chao told her he could give her the badge, but he might need it later, so she would have to lend it back. She silently took it and seemed fascinated by it, making him wonder what was so special. He asked if she knew where else he could find more badges, since he needed 2 to unlock the hidden task. Suddenly, the maid got close and snapped her fingers. Silhouettes of icons appeared in the air, and she looked amazing against them. Lu Chao was completely stunned. He asked if she really hated the Purple Moon Society that much. Just then, she froze again and lost her memory. Then Lu Chao realized she had multiple badges and wanted him to help restore her memory. She gestured for him to understand her situation. He was glad to get it, otherwise he might have thought she was secretly running the society's badge trade. He promised to help her find information about the Purple Moon Society, but only if she lent him some badges. She was surprised. She hadn't even gotten as many as she wanted, and now he was asking for some. He reassured her he wasn't tricking her. If she gave him the badges, he could get the information and share it. She finally agreed and gestured that he could take what he needed. Lu Chao decided that 2 badges would be enough. Lu Chao unlocked the secret storyline, and the system displayed a huge holographic scene in front of him. At first, he was impressed and expected tons of detailed info, but it turned out to be just a simple notice. He learned that the Purple Moon Society was very strong, with lots of members, and if they acted, they could be plotting something big. The members worshipped the purple moon and believed absorbing it would give them superpowers. Lu Chao was a bit disappointed. It wasn't as much info as he hoped. He realized he'd have to rely on his own skills to figure things out. Apparently, the purple moon was some special object they wanted to absorb. Then a message popped up saying he needed 10 purple moon badges to get more info. He was surprised, thinking the first 2 badges were just the start, like buying drinks in a bar where each one costs more. With a funny expression, he tried to grab more badges, but the maid quickly snatched them from him. He was surprised and teased her for being greedy since he hadn't been so greedy when sharing seeds with her. Once the conditions were met, he got more info. This society held meetings every 3 years in different locations in Kingzhou, and the next one would be on Winter Sunday next year. He chuckled, thinking these demonic cultivators were as silly as regular players setting up a trade stall. He realized he had a lot of training ahead if he wanted to be strong enough by then. He imagined standing in front of them and confidently saying they were finished, but then laughed at the thought. They probably wouldn't take him seriously. He knew if he wasn't strong enough, he'd be in trouble. Meanwhile, the maid got more active and impatient. Lu Chao tried to show her a bit of the celestial mystery by tossing the badges in front of her in a special formation, but she was too excited to wait. She thought she'd get the secret immediately, but nothing happened. She got frustrated, started collecting all the badges, and pushed him around to show her anger. Lu Chao explained he needed time to organize his thoughts and promised he'd explain soon. He had never seen her so worked up. Eventually, he smiled and said goodbye, while she remained annoyed that he hadn't understood her at all. Back at home, Lu Chao checked the map. The place he needed to go was really far. He realized the path to success would never be easy. Winter came, and he trained with serious dedication, putting in a ton of effort and discipline every day. Lu Chao kept training until the pain started to fade. One morning Lu Dong showed up in winter clothes. He said another winter sun had passed, and she'd grown a year older. They dressed up and descended the mountain together. Lu Dong said everything was ready and joked they should enjoy this day of human transformation. They went to their ancestors' house, cooked, ate, and remembered the old times with their parents. Now it was just the 2 of them running the sect, so the day felt a little bittersweet. The next day they walked home slowly. Lu Chao asked Lu Dong to promise to come back to the same spot for next year's Winter Sunday. She wanted to stay on the mountain and cultivate, but he teased that he wanted to take her away and settle a score. She looked suspicious but agreed. As long as he was with her, she wasn't afraid of anything. They hurried off. There was work to do. New disciples would arrive soon, and they needed to strengthen the sect. There were 250 days left until the Kingdom of Heaven beta started, and players would soon register. Meanwhile, someone was looking for Lu Chao nearby. Luo Bing said she didn't know why. If she did, she wouldn't have wasted time there. Chen Xiao hoped he still had a chance to impress leader Lu. He just needed to ask one question to be 100% sure Lu Chao was the secret senior disciple. When he saw Lu Chao enter the main gate, he ran over to say goodbye. Lu Chao said it was fine to go. Chen Xiao tried to nudge him, offering to greet Aunt Ning and ask after you, hoping that would prove Lu Chao's identity. Lu Chao saw through the test but didn't mind a little openness. Some goodwill from the sword sect could help most sects' reputation. He told Chen Xiao to pass greetings to Aunt Ning, but said you was younger and didn't need the same formal greeting. Chen Xiao was thrilled. Now he had no doubts. He flew off to the sword sect, proud and confirmed. Lu Chao watched him go. Lu Dong asked what he was staring at. He replied that he was looking at a flying advertising leaflet. As he was flying, he thought that leader Lu hadn't mentioned Yu's name, and Yu hadn't mentioned Lu Chao's name, so they must think alike. He understood why both wanted to hide their friendship and rivalry, only to reveal themselves one day and shock the world. He swore he would never reveal their secret. Days passed. 7 went by, then half a month, then a month, and Qin Shao still hadn't returned. Lu Chao grew annoyed. The next time he saw him, he muttered, he'd make sure Qin Shao learned a proper lesson for wasting time and showing off. Some time had passed in the sword sect. Qin Shao met Yu and started telling him some emotional news. Yu was shocked. He couldn't believe Lu Chao had leveled up so fast and thought that at this rate, Lu would soon be stronger than him. Qin Shao kept explaining, and Yu felt a bit like his younger self, struggling to keep up with someone ahead of him. Couldn't believe it either and shouted that it was impossible. Qin Shao finally noticed him and asked what was wrong. Suddenly, Yu said he needed to leave because he had important cultivation to focus on. As he flew off, Qin Shao thought Yu was a brilliant swordsman who could ascend at any moment. He also flew off himself, thinking about his own mission. He had to spread the story of the secret senior disciple but without revealing Lu Chao's identity. That secret was the most important part of his task, and he planned to keep it hidden forever. Time passed, spring arrived, and Qin Shao was finally dead in Lu Chao's heart. He was sitting in his chair, thinking about a new plan, since there were 212 days left until the beta test started. For a small sect like theirs, attracting new players meant showing power. In his past life, he hadn't cared about a sect like theirs, but now he needed skilled and courageous players. Perverts wouldn't help the sect grow. He remembered his old master fondly and wondered if he would meet her again in this life. He knew thinking about her could make him restless, but he tried to focus. First, he wanted to check on his disciples, who hadn't returned from descending the mountain yet. The place felt empty without them. Suddenly, a sharp sound made him jump, and the girls were surprised too. It was the national call asking what had happened. Lu Chao saw it as a chance to show off. The main bell of the sect was installed at the main gate when the Mo sect was founded. There were 301 bells like it, made by the 9th Lord of the Sword sect. The bell was expensive and could ring underground without using energy. People thought it held some secret, but actually, it was simple. If something happened in the mortal world, lighting incense would make it ring. Lu Chao approached the bell and started reading its energy. Luo Bing suggested she descend the mountain with him, but he hesitated, thinking it wasn't a good opportunity. She insisted, saying she really wanted to go with him. In the end, he agreed, worried something bad might have happened, and told her she could come along. Lu Dong thought Luo Bing was being a bit mischievous, teasing as usual. Meanwhile, Lu Chao started using a technique to scout ahead and figure out where to fly next. Through it, he spotted a misty river. Luo Bing was surprised and couldn't figure out what had happened there. Lu Chao remembered that the last time there had been trouble, it had also involved a misty river, and he was curious what was going on this time. As they got closer, the locals got excited when they saw the cultivators approaching. When Lu Chao and the others landed, all the residents bowed and greeted them respectfully. The villagers admired Lu Chao a lot. He activated his energy and asked what had happened. An elder explained that there was another waterman causing trouble in the river. Lu Chao was curious about what that could mean. Luo Bing thought he'd probably be angry, since nothing had been done since the last incident. He approached the water and focused, and soon received a notification that a new task had been accepted. The system confirmed that it was indeed a waterman at the bottom of the river, and the reward would be 10,000 experience points. Luo Bing realized he was upset because months ago, they had already dealt with a waterman. Back then, Lu Chao had been busy training, and Lu Dong had gone down the mountain, leaving only her and Hei Ting behind. They were too weak to handle it, so they had taken spiritual stones from their sect and asked the 100 Intermediaries sect for help. That sect had accepted the jewels and promised to handle the waterman. Lu Chao had even praised them at the time for taking responsibility. Now it was clear that the sect had just taken the stones and done nothing. Lu Chao was furious. They had deceived his disciples and wasted his trust. He stomped on the water, knowing that in this world, trouble doesn't come from one mistake but from many years of neglect. The water creature had formed from years of accumulated incidents, and the villagers confirmed that Lu Chao's last helper had been arrogant and ineffective. There shouldn't have been two water creatures in the same area, yet these sects had messed things up. He asked the elder if anyone had been hurt. The elder said a fisherman had died, and the villagers mourned deeply. Lu Chao told Luo Bing to stay with the villagers and protect them while he handled the situation. He then focused his energy, activated strong water abilities, and sank into the river to begin the task. Using the system, he locked onto the target. It was a level 20 water creature, born 6 months ago, and still very strong. As the water creature accelerated and surged toward him, the villagers watched anxiously from the surface. Some were curious, while others were confident that leader Lu could handle the waterman without any trouble. Suddenly, a huge explosion erupted from the river, sending water flying high into the air. People started shouting that it was the waterman again and that the blast had sent him soaring up the mountain. As he began to fall back, Lu Chao appeared behind him, looking calm, serious, and totally majestic. He focused his energy and told the creature to disappear. Using his new power, black energy enveloped it completely. Soon, a strong flash appeared, and everyone nearby hurriedly closed their eyes. When the light faded, the water calmed and turned a clear blue. Everything looked peaceful again, like the disturbance had never happened. The water creature was gone, and the villagers looked around for Lu Chao, realizing they hadn't even had a chance to thank him. As they flew back, Lu Chao asked Luobing which sect they had asked for help last time. She told him it was the Shuiyu sect, which specialized in water sword techniques. He thought it was smart of his disciples to choose them. She asked if they were going there now, and he said they would eventually, but first, they had something else to take care of. They arrived at a large house at the foot of a mountain. Inside, a woman was sewing, crying quietly, while her son played with a wooden sword. The boy wondered where his father was, who had promised to bring him fruit but hadn't returned. Suddenly, a loud knock came at the gate. The mother told her son to open the door quickly. He rushed to open it, but no one was there. He picked up the sweets from the ground, thinking his father must have returned to the neighborhood. Even though it was just a simple fisherman's home, Lu Chao could feel the weight of the family's loss. Luobing noted the boy probably didn't have potential for cultivation, but Lu Chao thought the child had a good personality, and no one could predict what he might become in the future. He mentioned the boy's luck level was 9, similar to Xiao Qiu's from their sect, and then quietly left. Luobing thought if Lu Chao said he wasn't simple, then he must know something about the boy. As they walked, Luobing reflected that Lu Chao was a little strange but kind deep down. They approached the Shuiyu sect, which was part of the 100 intermediary system at level 98. The sect's leader looked exhausted, and the elders didn't get along well, often causing trouble for each other. When they arrived, the sect's disciples noticed the couple and assumed they weren't ordinary people. Someone asked which sect they were from and why they had come. At that moment, a task called Rules activated. Lu Chao carefully considered it. He realized that one disciple had taken most sect's spiritual stones but acted recklessly, didn't handle the waterman as promised, and failed to fulfill their duty with the public bell. The task was designed to figure out who had done this and what the consequences should be. He mentally asked the system to show the names of the people in front of him. The NPCs looked surprised, but none of them were the one he was looking for. Suddenly, 2 disciples stepped right into Lu Chao's path, demanding to know how he could just stroll into their sect and act so freely. They warned him that if he didn't answer, they wouldn't be kind. Lu Chao noticed a huge national bell on the mountain and instantly got an idea. Pointing at it, he shouted, and a water arrow shot toward the bell, striking it. A deafening sound erupted, and the shockwaves spread everywhere. The disciples were stunned. They drew their swords, yelling at him for daring to do that, but Lu Chao didn't even move. His calm, mysterious gaze was intimidating, making the disciples feel like tiny pests under scrutiny. One of them nervously asked again which sect he belonged to and why he was there. He said the national bell was ringing, and why wasn't anyone responding to its call? When they heard this, they were very surprised and even more frightened. They got even more scared. They whispered to each other, praising Lu Chao's clothes and looks, thinking he must be from the sword sect and someone who maintained order. At that point, they realized they were in over their heads. Luobing noticed the tense standoff and asked if they were done staring at each other. Lu Chao warned sharply that if no one acted, no one could complain later about what happened. Immediately, the disciples ran off to report to the elders. Luobing asked if he had come to teach that bad disciple a lesson, and Lu Chao said no, he just wanted justice for the family. Earlier, 2 men had arrived at the main gate with swords. They were the elders whose leader was currently cultivating, and they were constantly at odds, trying to create discord to take his place. Lu Chao ignored their squabble, saying he wasn't there to watch their drama, he was the leader of Mo's sect. Hearing this, the disciples breathed a sigh of relief, realizing Lu Chao was someone they couldn't casually provoke. At first, they couldn't even remember the sect's rank, but then they recalled it was in the bottom 100. Lu Chao explained he was looking for someone from their sect. The elders thought he was weak and reckless for daring to come and look for trouble. One of them nervously asked who he needed. Lu Chao said he was looking for a disciple named Meng Feng from the Shuiyu sect. The elder immediately tensed. This was his 3rd disciple, and he realized Lu Chao had found the right person quickly. Meng Feng himself was cautious, not understanding why the Mo sect leader knew his name. He considered that maybe stories of his appearance had spread, but quickly dismissed it, knowing his reputation was already well known among those around him. Meng Feng suddenly remembered something important. A while back, 2 people had come to him for help with the water creature. He had mocked them at first, telling them to kneel. They argued a bit but eventually offered precious stones as thanks. Meng Feng, feeling confident, told them to leave it to him and that he could handle the water creature easily. He even went to the girl's house, exchanged the stones for money, spent it all, and didn't even think about the water creature after that. Now, he realized Lu Chao had come because of that incident. He found it strange that a faraway sect would involve its leader in something like this. He figured the water creature was minor and even if some people got hurt, it wouldn't matter much. Still, he knew he couldn't let his master's reputation suffer. So he admitted his mistake right away, explaining that his strength wasn't enough before, and the water creature escaped. He promised to return the gems double. Lu Chao listened calmly but reminded him a fisherman had died near the misty river. Meng Feng's face immediately changed. He realized Lu Chao wasn't there for money, though he tried to offer triple the gems anyway. Lu Chao was annoyed at the attempt to buy his way out and asked him to name the 16th sword rule. The disciple froze with fear, trembling, and started explaining the rule about accepting tasks through the national bell. If disobeyed, serious consequences followed. The elder nearby thought Lu Chao was blackmailing him, while another believed Lu Chao was just showing authority. Lu Chao explained the punishment: 6 lashes, 3 striking the body, and 3 striking the heart of the Tao. The body strikes hurt but could heal. The heart strikes were serious. If the heart of the Tao broke, the cultivator couldn't advance and might even lose strength. Meng Feng begged for mercy, terrified, because no one could heal that kind of wound. The elder was furious too, realizing he'd have to give resources and then figure out how to get them back. He tried to intervene, but Lu Chao ignored him. Lu Chao then told Meng Feng he had 3 options: take the 6 lashes, have a sword fight with him, or, well, the third option was just a joke. Meng Feng was terrified and barely reacted, and Lu Chao smiled, teasing him that there really was no third option, but hinted that maybe the first and second could happen together. The master suddenly shouted at leader Lu, telling him to stop scaring his student. The junior master tried to make things worse, saying the senior master had wanted to bribe him before, which was also against the sword rules. The master was shocked. He didn't expect the junior master to act so recklessly now. The disciple begged for help, but fear took over, and he realized his master wasn't going to intervene. Then Lu Chao said if no choice was made, he would pick the third option himself. The disciple panicked, thinking it meant a fight, and immediately drew his sword. He sized up Lu Chao, noticing the blue energy surrounding him. He figured Lu Chao's strength was close to his own, so a strike from him might hurt but wouldn't be fatal, better than taking 6 lashes from the sword sect. Lu Chao told him to relax and that he wouldn't even unsheath his sword. The disciple was shocked. He realized he could still get seriously hurt. The masters watched closely, one thinking Lu Chao was just teasing, while the other couldn't understand why he wasn't drawing his sword. The disciple shouted for Lu Chao to go ahead and got ready, preparing himself to block the attack. Suddenly, a massive force filled the area. The masters gasped. It was the power of heaven and earth, the sword's pre-consciousness. The disciple tried to resist, but the force was overwhelming. His sword broke instantly, and he was thrown back hard, clothes shredded, smoke everywhere. His master shouted in shock. Lu Chao calmly noted that the disciple probably couldn't handle the power. A helper explained that the disciple's sword heart was broken, meaning he could still cultivate physically but not strengthen his own heart. Lu Chao added that the disciple would stop training after this. The master was furious, struggling to contain his anger. The other teacher said he couldn't believe someone would violate the sword rules for the sake of their own student. In his mind, he thought the senior teacher would fight Lu Chao, breaking the rules, and that sect would definitely be his. The master turned his focus on his colleague, weakening his own lust energy, and admitted that Lu Chao was young but had a very strong technique. The junior master was stunned, thinking his partner had been flattering Lu Chao all along. Luo Bing watched everything and thought, wow, this is real sword cultivation. She felt her heart swell, seeing Lu Chao so skilled, smart, and composed, the young master she truly admired. But then she looked at the injured disciple, Meng Feng, and realized that Lu Chao had directed his anger at him for failing in his duty, not at them. The junior master was fuming inside, thinking Lu Chao was disrespecting the senior master. He saw this as a perfect chance to stir things up and walked over to Meng Feng, exaggerating the disciple's injuries and saying he might be out of commission. He blamed the destruction of 10 years of hard work on this one event. Then he grabbed Meng Feng's face and complained about the damage he supposedly had, acting like no one was defending him. The master's energy surged in anger, and Lu Chao realized someone was trying to manipulate the situation. He calmly asked the elders whether Meng Feng had the right to resist according to the sword sect rules. Both masters were shocked. If the disciple had resisted, Lu Chao would have been justified in taking stronger action. Lu Chao continued, explaining that if Meng Feng had resisted, it would have been fine and no incident would have happened. The malicious junior master wondered what Lu Chao was trying to do, while the senior master admitted that a duel would have been better than lashes, and that their sect itself was weak compared to Mo's sect. Both masters were embarrassed. They realized the kid had publicly shamed them and insulted their sex pride. Lu Chao reminded them that since he was the leader, he ranked above them and asked why they hadn't shown respect when he arrived. The two masters had no words. They were fuming but couldn't argue. Suddenly, someone clapped and commented that the situation was really interesting. Both masters were surprised to see who it was. It turned out to be Nanwei from the sword sect, descending the stairs in armor. She looked impressive and had a very high status. Being the daughter of a sword master, she ranked even above many leaders' children. Lu Chao realized her position was higher than his, as he was only a servant of a sword master. On top of that, she was a couple with you, making the situation even more layered. Lu Chao wondered if he was still in the hidden love stage, observing all of this quietly. Lu Chao was staring intently at a girl, and Luo Bing noticed he wasn't really looking at anyone else. She figured this was the kind of girl he was genuinely interested in. She remembered a similar feeling from her childhood, seeing two women in a brothel who weren't very pretty but had some kind of charm that drew everyone in. If she was a sword master's daughter, the scan would be much slower, meaning she was probably at least level 40, way stronger than most. The girl approached and introduced herself politely, greeting Lu Chao. He smiled and mentioned that he'd heard about her from you, careful not to imply that he hadn't helped you in the past. She found him fascinating because unlike others who would show off their power when meeting someone important, he just accepted her respect calmly. She wondered if he might be the secret senior disciple you once mentioned. They chatted briefly, and the two masters watching thought they'd offended both of them. Lu Chao said he had other matters to attend to in his sect and started leaving, and the girl didn't object. But then, he surprised everyone by reminding the senior master about triple compensation for his disciples' mistakes. The senior master didn't want to discuss it in front of the girl, so he quickly handed over a bag, which Lu Chao passed to Luo Bing to carry carefully. As they flew off, the girl thought Lu Chao was incredible and decided she needed to figure out if he really was the secret disciple. The masters approached her, complaining about the trouble their disciple had caused. She calmly told them to train more with the sword, which left them stunned. They hadn't expected such a response. Then she mounted her sword and flew off, saying she had other things to do. Luo Bing noticed the girl was following them and wondered what her intentions were. She was indignant and wondered if that was legal. Could she have pumped air into it? Lu Chao showed no concern but wondered why she was following them. She quickly caught up and asked if she could ask leader Lu something. Lu Chao activated a gentle spiritual wind to make himself more charming and asked what she wanted. She inquired if he and you had known each other since childhood. Lu Chao smiled as he remembered his childhood, especially those times he had sparred with you, and confirmed that yes, he had known him since they were kids. Nanwei got excited, realizing that the secret disciple you had always talked about was actually Lu Chao. He looked intrigued, a bit puzzled, wondering what you was up to. She explained that you always mentioned the leader of the Lu sect from the sword sect but never said the name, even when her father asked. This made Lu Chao a bit annoyed. He finally understood why his reputation hadn't grown as much as it should. She told him her father had been jealous, and Lu Chao tried to figure out why a sword master would be jealous. He recalled the image of a great sword master statue and finally understood. Nanwei asked if he knew why her father said that, and he asked her if she knew who the loneliest people in the world were. Luo Bing, curious, asked what he meant. Lu Chao explained that being invincible made someone lonely, always searching for someone who could match them. Nanwei and Luo Bing were impressed by the logic and simplicity of his thought. He added that you was a once-in-a-thousand-years talent, and that having a rival like Lu Chao made the sword master envious. Luo Bing praised him for having such a lifelong rival, and Nanwei thought Luo Bing was smart for understanding so quickly. Lu Chao got a little annoyed at you too, thinking he had missed out on gaining reputation points if the sword master had learned about him. He asked Nanwei if she had any more questions. If not, they would continue their journey. Nanwei was surprised by how casually he said they'd leave if there were no questions. Usually, people and sex bowed immediately wherever she went, but Lu Chao was completely different, even mentioning her father casually. She asked if she could stay at the Mo sect for a few days, thinking he was different from everyone else and noticing how handsome he was. Lu Chao, suspicious, guessed she might just want a free stay. He thought she should keep dreaming, but then he noticed something very valuable on her. His attitude immediately changed, and he said she could stay, recognizing her status as a sword master's daughter and a senior disciple. Luo Bing wondered why Lu Chao, who normally didn't like strangers, was acting this way. As they approached Mount Dankin, Lu Chao showed her where she would stay at the guest house and told her to make herself at home. When they landed, Lu Chao told Luo Bing to look after Nanwei during her free time so things wouldn't get complicated. He was excited to finally claim his reward and wondered what kind of prize he'd get this time. Back at his house, he sat in his armchair and asked the system to give him his gift. Some special effects restarted because last time he wasn't fully satisfied. He gained 20,000 experience points. not bad, and let it continue. Then he got 82 reputation points for completing the task. He wondered what it would take to hit 100 points, probably having to face stronger people, like those two masters. Suddenly, he realized he already had enough points to raise the sex level to 8. He checked what was left. He'd met one requirement, and needed a level 2 cultivator and 92 new disciples. The second one wasn't a problem. He had plenty of points from recent accomplishments. Deciding to level up twice, he broke through to the second boundary, feeling his energy surge. His sister sensed the strong energy and realized he had jumped 2 levels at once, moving to a new boundary. She practiced energy cultivation too, and her mind was blown. She thought 2 levels at once wouldn't be so hard, but seeing him at the first boundary and the 8th celestial layer shocked her. She remembered her father saying there was usually no need to rush sword techniques until the 3rd boundary. Even a perfect sword incarnation appears once every 1,000 years, and you had only formed preliminary sword consciousness at the 3rd boundary. She smiled mischievously, wondering if she should take him under her wing to study, but as the daughter of a sword master, she had to calm herself. Still, her obsession with swords was strong. A surge of energy hit her core, and she kept reminding herself that this was a sword pre-consciousness at the 1st boundary, something she had never seen before. She couldn't resist the urge to study him. All night, she stayed restless, waiting for dawn to get a closer look. She had done this before with you, so she knew exactly what she wanted. She finally grabbed him and tied him up, determined to figure out his secret. He shouted for help, but she ignored it, focused on her goal. Meanwhile, Lu Chao wasn't resting either. He had a sly smile, excited about the new challenge. He loved these kinds of tasks. This time, he noticed 4 colors to choose from. Last time, the orange level had given him a certificate to awaken spiritual energy, and he planned to pick it again. Lu Chao picked an orange level task to level up. The mission required him to deal with a dangerous cultivator from a secret organization. He smiled, knowing it probably wasn't going to be a calm year. A countdown appeared. He had 2 days to complete the task. Excited, he said the hunt had officially started and that the target's final hours had begun. The system showed him the demon's location, and he was ready. Early the next morning, he was already on the mountain, doing his super cultivation routine. Training every day was a habit, and hunting this target wouldn't interfere with it. As he opened his eyes, he noticed a girl standing there, watching him curiously. She complimented his technique, and he reminded her that it was rude to disturb someone mid-cultivation. He turned to the side, deciding not to be too lenient, and she immediately apologized, realizing her mistake. Even though she was obsessed with swords and he had high charisma, he knew he needed to stay careful. He told her he had business off the mountain and that she was free to move around the sect. She asked to talk to him, so he started flying and let her follow. She was curious about how he managed to form sword consciousness so early, which supposedly wasn't possible before the 3rd boundary. He said her father was wrong, and that stunned her. Anyone hearing him would think he was crazy, and the energy she felt from him made her even more flustered. She admitted that even as a sword path representative, she hadn't fully mastered the art, and she teased that her father would like him if he met him. Meanwhile, Lu Chao flew off, checking his map and wondering about his reward for completing the task. The thought of it made his heart race, but he still hadn't found the target. He jokingly called for his little demon to prepare, knowing the target wouldn't be alone. Dangerous beasts often accompanied it. But Lu Chao wasn't like everyone else. He was clever and ready for anything. The target was in a small village called Jinu, at the foot of a mountain. Ordinary villagers lived there, unaware of sect affairs. A clear river ran beside it, but suddenly a beautiful girl emerged from the water. She looked around, spotting the village, and a strange mark on her neck hinted at something unusual. Behind her, large monsters started appearing. She teased them, sending them toward the villagers for a feast. The monsters surged forward, leaping onto the shore, and people panicked, screaming and scattering in all directions. Suddenly, one of the monsters leapt toward the mountain, its shadow covering the girl and her mother. It twisted in midair, seemingly aiming for the child first. The mother tried to protect her, but a huge wall of water appeared, separating the monsters from them. 2 monsters were blocked completely, unable to reach the village. The mother and daughter were shocked by the power but relieved they were safe. Just then, Lu Chao appeared, revealing that he had created the water barrier and had arrived right in time. He told them to move to a safer spot, and the woman quickly removed her cast, amazed that such a powerful cultivator had come to help. The giant snake was level 21 and intimidating, while the spider was level 20, mixed with some animal traits. Lu Chao observed them and commented that these were standard opponents for him. Suddenly, both beasts attacked at the same time. The demonic cultivator controlling them taunted them, saying she wanted to watch the girl fight because she was brave. But for some reason, the girl stopped her and demanded to know who Lu Chao was, surprised that someone dared to interfere. Lu Chao stayed calm, showing no fear. The girl was struck by his looks, almost losing control, but quickly regained composure and complimented him, teasing how hot he was. He jokingly asked what she meant, and she immediately shifted to a fierce tone, threatening to dismantle his powers in a weird, playful way. Lu Chao activated his own power, causing a huge explosion, and joked about her choice of attack style. She responded by releasing poisonous gas, and he quickly sealed her mouth with his water technique, stunning her. Before he could reach her, the giant snake swooped in, forcing him to dodge and leap to the mountain. While airborne, another spider appeared behind him, and he realized this combo of beasts was tougher than expected. The villagers watched in worry, and the girl he saved shouted for him to be careful. He reassured them that he could handle it, preparing a strong counterattack. At the last moment, he extended his black energy to repel the spider's attack. The villagers were amazed, whispering about how intense the situation was, while the girl blushed and called him more of a brother than an uncle. He landed safely at a distance, noting that the beasts weren't extremely high level, but his energy had been drained from the previous move, so he needed to end the fight quickly. The demonic cultivator was furious that someone from the initial boundary dared to provoke her beasts. She ordered them to attack with full force. Lu Chao smiled, expecting this decisive move. He even teased her, saying she should attack faster because he couldn't feel anything yet, luring them into his strategy. At that moment, Lu Chao used a technique that completely shattered the monster's attack, catching them off guard because they lost sight of him. The demon girl got furious and yelled at her beasts to find him fast, thinking he was hiding. Lu Chao just smiled and said he wasn't really trying to hide. As soon as the mist around him cleared, he used his water pressure technique. The monsters slammed to the ground as if glued there, trapped by the mist. Perfect, he immobilized them and immediately followed up with a percussion technique. Invisible strikes shot down like lightning, piercing the snake and the spider, sending them flying in different directions. Lu Chao turned to the demon girl, saying she was finally alone and teasingly asking if she'd stopped wanting to chase him. She transformed into a furious beast, threatening to tear him apart while keeping him conscious so he could watch. He stayed calm and joked that was cruel, comparing it to his foreign friends eating frogs. Suddenly, she unleashed poisonous gas at him, and he didn't panic. He dodged it skillfully, realizing she knew about his water-based powers. He asked if she hadn't thought things through, which stunned her. When the gas almost reached him, he redirected it with force, sending it flying back toward her. It hit with great speed, and she couldn't avoid it, taking a heavy hit. She fell to her knees, coughing violently from the poison. Using what little strength she had, she created a green barrier to stop the mist from spreading further. Lu Chao asked if she was done for, and terrified, she begged him for mercy, offering herself. He laughed it off, saying he used to care about short-term pleasures but now only respected speed and skill. He slammed a wave of black energy at her barrier, cutting through it like an energy sword, telling her the spirits she'd consumed wanted her stopped. The spider and the demon girl were barely conscious. Then, the spider suddenly recovered, and the girl cheered, calling Lu Chao amazing and cool. The spider readied a final attack with a special stinger flying at high speed. The girl panicked, only seconds to react. Lu Chao appeared just in time to protect her. The spider tried to finish him off, but Lu Chao fired his black energy in a perfect counterattack, slicing the spider in half. He winced in pain because of the effort and the spider's sting, but the girl immediately started crying, worried he had been hurt because of her. Lu Chao sat down and created a few floating drops in the air, telling the girl to watch. She was completely mesmerized, forgetting all the scary stuff that had just happened, and kept saying how beautiful it was. Then, in a blink, he disappeared. The villagers chased after him, and as soon as they saw him, they started kneeling and bowing, thanking him for saving them. They even shouted his name and burned the remains of the monsters, praising him loudly. Lu Chao flew back and took some medicine for his wounds. He picked up the girl's clothes and commented that the style was good but the material was low quality. Still, he planned to sell them. From above the village, he looked around and realized that in the Celestial Kingdom, even the strongest cultivators weren't truly immortal, they were just a bit stronger than ordinary people. Still, villagers believed sword cultivators would always protect them. After all, what's the point of having a sword if you can't help the weak? He examined the girl's bracelet and thought it looked normal at first. Then, a portal appeared on it. Curious, he put his hand in and found some spiritual stones, but not a lot. He joked to himself that she might be poorer than him. Then he found something surprising, a human skull that had been there a long time. He decided to respectfully turn it into powder and let it rest, feeling he had avenged it. After that, he discovered 2 purple moon marks, showing she was a full member of her group. That meant his effort wasn't wasted. She didn't have much else, and he was satisfied. Next, he opened the system to submit his task. The reward would come through a roulette spin, divided into 4 classes from D to A, with A being the best. A giant holographic tape appeared, and he complained that the Class A section was tiny. The system assured him it was fair. He spun the tape with all his strength, watching nervously as it slowly approached Class A. Just when it seemed perfect, the tape wobbled strangely. Finally, it landed on the Class A he wanted. He asked the system what it was trying to do, but it just said the reward was on its way. When he received it, he was shocked and excited. It was a special scroll that could copy any object he touched in the other world, but only once. He realized how powerful it was. He could grab valuable treasures treasures for free. He thought of the main character's item in his house, which belonged to one of the 4 world leaders of the Celestial Kingdom, and knew it must contain great secrets. He laughed to himself, thinking if the main character had it, he, the chosen one, deserved it too. He hid the scroll safely and planned to help the girl use it soon. Flying back, he realized there were 4 Celestial Kings, but he would become the 5th. While in the air, he decided it was the perfect time to make a new upgrade. And that's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, hit that like button for more juicy updates, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button for regular updates.